call tonight's meeting to order. If we should encounter an emergency situation, please exit the building. There's 2 sets of doors off of the lobby. If for some reason those exits are not available, there is another exit behind council. Our muster point is located near the gazebo in Lions Park, and if we are evacuated for any reason, we will not re-enter the building until giving an all clear from staff. Next, we will move into, before we begin, I just want to note that this meeting is being recorded. This recording may include your image, voice, or other personal information. The information is collected under the Protection of Privacy Act, and if you have any questions about this, please contact the town's Access and Privacy Officer. And I'll also note we have a very full room, and I know we have some listening in online, so for council particularly, if we can all just get incredibly cozy with our microphones tonight, that would be appreciated, and I will interrupt with a reminder if anyone veers back and gets too comfortable back in their seats. Next, we can move into the land acknowledgement from Councillor Mearns.
The town of Sylvan Lake respectfully acknowledges that the land on which we gather is Treaty 6 territory, home of the Métis Nation of Alberta, Region 3. These lands are traditional meeting grounds, gathering places, and travel routes for many nations, including the Cree, Dene, Blackfoot, Métis, Saulteaux, and Nakota Sioux. We are grateful for traditional knowledge keepers and elders who are still with us today and those who have gone before us. We acknowledge and thank all the many First Nations, Métis, and Inuit whose footsteps have marked these lands for centuries.
Thank you, Councillor Mearns. Next, we will move into open microphone. Open microphone is an opportunity for residents of Sylvan Lake to provide their feedback on issues that are pertaining to the town. We have a maximum, our bylaw says we have room for up to 3 presenters for up to 5 minutes each to speak at open microphone. And I will note tonight, we do have substantially more than that signed up. We do have 7 for council's information on a diverse number of topics. Now, we will go forward with our 3, and after that point, council, after looking at our bylaw, we do need unanimous consent to continue beyond the 3. So we'll start with our 3 signed up for open microphone, and then we will continue on with a vote from there. So with that, we will start with Mr. Parsons and Ms. Tetro. Yes. Veterans at the microphone here, but you'll see we have a clock that's doing a 10-minute count or 10-second countdown. That would be really long. If you can just wait till the beeping concludes and then start with an introduction. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you. My name is Michelle Tetro, and I'm a longtime resident of Sylvan Lake and a member of the Tourism Advisory Committee. I'm here today to talk to Council about reconsidering your decision to prohibit tents, shade structures in Centennial Park, and also to revisit your parking fees. Tourism is not a nuisance in our community. It is one of the foundations of our local economy. Every weekend during the summer, thousands of visitors come to our town. They eat in our restaurants, buy ice cream, shop in our stores, fuel their vehicles, and support local jobs. Many Alberta communities would do anything to attract 10,000 visitors on a summer weekend. We already have that opportunity, and we should be managing it wisely, not discouraging it. I'm concerned by comments made publicly by members of council suggesting tourism offers little benefit to the community and the families arriving with tents that do not spend money in our town. The economic studies and visitor spending data demonstrates the exact opposite. Tourism supports employment. As a matter of fact, Sylvan Lake has the largest percentage in this whole region, municipal revenue and community vibrancy. A successful beach town cannot thrive while simultaneously sending the messages that visitors are not welcome to our community. Families are not bringing tents or shade structures to create problems. They're bringing shade for children, grandparents, and multi-generational gatherings. They will be more evident this season than ever with a larger beach area available with little sunshade. A blanket prohibition punishes the vast majority of respectful visitors because of isolated concerns that should instead be addressed through enforcement and education. I'm equally concerned about the dramatic increase in our parking fees. We have to ask ourselves, if a family spends $50 just to park, what happens next? That may mean no lunch in town, no shopping, no drinks on the patio, no ice cream for the kids. These are the real impacts to our local economy and to our local businesses. Perhaps council should reconsider a more balanced approach, such as lower weekday parking rates and higher weekend rates. How do we expect to attract the young families, mothers with children, and day visitors during weekdays if parking costs become a barrier? And respectfully, it is unrealistic to expect parking revenue to cover 100% of beach maintenance, law enforcement, policing, and garbage collection costs. Municipal parks, recreation facilities, and tourist destinations across Alberta rarely operate on full cost recovery. Communities invest in these amenities because they generate broader economic and social benefits. Sylvan Lake has built a reputation as Alberta's premier beach destination, a welcoming place for families. I urge Council not to allow us to become known instead as a community trying to deter visitors. We can balance resident concerns with tourism success, but we must do it in a way that protects both our quality of life and the economic engine that supports so many local businesses and their jobs. Thank you.
Graham Parsons, also a member of the Tourist Advisory Board. I remember in previous budget discussions, after the town took over control of the lakefront and in turn upkeep and maintenance, the goal was to balance cost recovery with visitor appreciation. Given the recent layers of seemingly visitor mitigation policies and the negativity towards our tourist industry on certain social media sites, it is gratifying to hear from some of my former colleagues that, most certainly, they will address possible changes and restructuring of any policies that may be the cause of any noticeable drop in visitation and/or significant negative publicity to our reputation as a welcoming and inclusive tourist destination sooner than later. Thank you.
Thank you. Council, do we have any questions for clarification? Seeing none, I'll thank you for your presentation. Next, we'll move along to Ms. Bradshaw. And you saw the drill, you'll just see the countdown clock right there, and once that completes the beeping, we're happy to hear from you.
Good afternoon, Mayor Hanson and council members. My name is Kathy Bradshaw, and I would like to speak to you today and ask you to allow for personal canopies to remain and be placed in Centennial Park. I think it's a safety, accessibility, and inclusion matter in this public space that we have designed for families. So Sylvan Lake worked very hard to become a family-friendly, welcoming, and safe community. We restricted bars. We prohibit smoking in key public areas. And we paid to have Centennial Park connected to the beach to make it safe and accessible for everyone to go back and forth. Shade in Centennial Park is limited, especially during the hottest parts of the day. Children need places to cool down. Seniors and residents who have health concerns are more vulnerable to heat and sun exposure. And it could be due to age or illness, medications. We've seen families gathering next to the playground equipment that we also invested a lot of money into. And we wanted to draw those families there, and they're having birthday parties and they're having family celebrations. The cookhouses aren't always available to rent, and they're not necessarily tied as closely to the playground equipment. I think to continue keeping that space.
And I'll just ask you to cozy up to your microphone.
Sorry.
I'm getting the signal. Thank you.
Okay. Some of the children, including autistic and sensory sensitive children, need a place to step away sometimes when activity and noise and crowds get to be too much. If you're a mom there with a few kids, it's harder to take that child away and do that. If we allow them to have a small canopy, there's a little place they can go to be private. As well, families have babies. Babies need to be nursed and they need their diapers changed. If you've got kids playing, you have to gather all of the children and go over to the one washroom there to change your child. It's not really very convenient. It's also not easy to, for seniors to enjoy that comfortably if they don't have some sort of shade. So we're asking, we want our seniors engaged, we want them down there at the park, we want them involved with the community, sharing time with their families and friends and marking milestones. And that means we need to make it convenient and safe. A canopy is the least we can offer them. And I don't think that, that's very hard to do. Personal canopies are cost effective for the town. We're not paying for infrastructure to be down there. Residents provide their own, they take them away when they're done. To be clear, I'm not suggesting that it's unrestricted use. I think reasonable guidelines should be in place regarding the size, the placement, the duration, and attaching them to trees or other structures. We might want to control that. I'd like to also note that this isn't unusual. Edmonton, Calgary, Lacombe, Red Deer, they allow for canopies in their parks. They do have some guidelines, like I've suggested, to keep it from getting out of control. I know that there are going to be concerns about appearance and tidiness, and I understand that concern. I was a founding member of the Sylvan Lake Communities in Bloom, and I stayed on that committee until we won the province's highest award. I took provincial judges through our community, and I understand the value of putting our best foot forward. In my experience, canopies aren't untidy and unsightly, particularly when they're used responsibly. In fact, they often make public spaces feel more welcoming. They make it appear festive, organized, comfortable, vibrant. They signal that families are gathering, neighbors are connecting, and people feel comfortable being in our park. Centennial Park is already designed to accommodate temporary recreational use, from picnic gatherings to sports equipment. I see badminton nets there, soccer nets. Small personal canopies kind of fit naturally within that shared community space. So I'm asking council to recognize that shade and comfort, accessibility and inclusion are not luxuries. They're part of creating public spaces that truly work for everyone. And I think that a lively, well-used park is a sign of a healthy community. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Council, do we have any questions for clarification? Seeing none, I'll thank you very much for your presentation. Next, we'll move to Ms. Howard. And we'll let you settle in. If you could just press the button on the center of the microphone to light it up. We're happy to hear from you.
My name is Janice Howard, and I'm here representing a group of owners.
Sorry. There you are. The floor is yours.
Okay. I'm here representing a group of owners that was annexed by the town in 2015. We live along Highway 11A east of Sylvan Lake, and there are a number of owners, I believe, in the room. If they could kind of wave. Yeah, there's a few owners represented here. So in March, we received notification from the town that the annexation order was done and that our taxes would be town of Sylvan Lake rate. There was no indication of how much of an increase that would be. So the annexation growth policy required justification. The town of Sylvan Lake and Red Deer County Intermunicipal Development Plan says that annexation proposals had to be justified by, number one, projected growth and economic need, number two, the ability to economically service the land, number three, a logical extension of water and sewer, and number four, avoiding annexation the town could not reasonably service. The observed reality in front of us today is number one, no municipal water expansion, number two, no sewer extension, number three, no sidewalks or urban roads, number four, no major servicing, and number five, the same rural character. In essence, exactly the same as it was when it was annexed in 2015. What servicing, infrastructure, and urban benefit has actually been delivered to the annexed land since 2016 to justify such a large increase. Speaking for myself, we own about 100 acres, most of which is farmland. My tax rate is going up 46%. My nearest neighbor next to me, he has a smaller parcel, about 25 acres, so he has less farmland. His taxes are going up 48.2%. So this is the kind of situation where we, the residents, are not arguing taxes are too high, but we are arguing these 6 points. Number one, annexation commitments were not met. Number two, tax transition protections are inadequate. Number three, municipal services versus basis benefit is disproportionate. Number 4, Alberta precedent exists for decades-long phase-ins, where annexation creates a tax burden without urbanization. Number 5, we absorb the urban taxation without any corresponding urban benefits. And number 6, was the land annexed primarily for future industrial inventory, while us landowners will carry the increasing taxes during a long holding period. Another point to consider is that growth has not continued in the anticipated trajectory that existed when the land was annexed. Between 2006 to 2011, about 21% growth. 2011 to 2016, about 20% growth. 2016 to 2021, less than 8% growth. Annexation and growth planning assumptions around 2015 may have been based on the earlier high growth period, but the actual growth came in much lower at less than 8%. Finally, we are protesting the 10-year timeline of the annexation order being lifted. There are many other municipalities in Alberta to compare to, but I would like to highlight 2 Alberta comparison points. Number 1, Edmonton and Leduc County, their annexation order was 50 years. Calgary and Rocky View County, their annexation order was 30 years. The Alberta average is about 20 years, whereas the town of Sylvan Lake gave us a 10-year with no ability to have any input into that. If Edmonton and Leduc used a 50-year protection, why did our municipality only provide us with 10 years? We would request respectfully that we can submit some questions and have written answers that would go on the record.
Thank you. Council, do we have any questions for clarification? Seeing none, I would invite you certainly to connect with our recording clerk and ensure that you have the correct email. And if you can send those, that would be great.
Okay.
Thank you. Council, we have reached the end of what our bylaw permits, so I'll ask the question if anyone would like to put forward a motion to extend our open microphone to our 7 signed up, so 4 additional. Councillor Iwanicki?
Yeah, I'd move to extend the time. I don't know how much to give. Let's say another 5 minutes each.
Yeah, I would ask if we do extend that, of course, we try and keep presentations as concise as possible, just to allow us to get to as many and then continue on with our meeting. But yeah, it would be the additional 4 that are signed up. Any questions on Councillor Iwanicki's motion? All those in favor and opposed, and that is carried. Great. I'm sorry, I don't have a last name. Oh, do I have a last name? Moira. Welcome. Thank you. You'll be a pro by presentation number 7, but you'll just wait for a moment. Once you hear the beeps, then we're happy to hear from you. And I'll just get you to, yeah, we've got an assistant there for you. How wonderful.
That might be very useful. Yeah. Well, good evening, Mayor and Council. And first of all, thank you all very much for what you do. I'm a relatively new resident here. I've just been here over about 5 years now. But I love Sylvan Lake, and I just have a couple of wee comments, if I may. And thank you for giving me this opportunity this evening as well. I'd like to address 2 concerns regarding our beachfront pathways and the beach camping areas. First, the walking paths I don't know if you go down there very often, but I walk there twice a day. And it's, you're taking your life in your hands basically now, because it's become increasingly difficult. At lots of times it's unsafe for pedestrians, because we now regularly share the pathways with bicycles, tricycles, recumbent bikes, scooters, and other wheeled devices of some sort. Sometimes I don't even know what they are. While I appreciate that everyone wants to enjoy the beautiful waterfront, the volume and speed of the wheel traffic is simply causing a concern. The volume in particular is a major concern. I'm a senior, but I'm almost 70, but I've seen people on there younger than me really struggling. There's safety concerns for seniors, for children. I no longer walk my dog down there because it's just not safe, and I don't take my grandchildren down there either. I believe there are some practical solutions here in town. One would be requiring a very simple wee thing that's used all over God's earth, is that you put on a bloody bell on your bicycle before you pass somebody. It should be mandatory, and then you should ring it. And I see people of my vintage, if you even ask them or mention, oh, would you mind ringing your bell? You'd think you'd ask them to climb Mount Everest, you know. They give you a very dirty look. In addition to that, I also think that there should be better signage. And no disrespect to whatever genius came up with putting writing on the ground. It's nearly all gone. It's utterly daft. Nobody looks down when they're walking. So there should be signs if I may respectfully say, all throughout the world where I've been, there's a green post and a red post. The wee red post says, here's what not to do. Don't pass people without ringing your bell. Don't smoke, whatever the heck else. And your wee green one says, welcome to Sylvan, enjoy the water, be courteous, and all the rest of it. I think with a wee bit of education, a lot of other things aren't mandatory. My second concern really is I'd like to address the growing issue of large camping areas. Now, I've just been here 5 years, and just to be clear, I'm married to a brown man, so it's not about prejudice, but there's some of those encampments, I could not see my grandchildren if they were out there because they're so massive. And the sites are becoming overcrowded, and I know that there is signage, but as I said, it says 2 meters, and most people around here don't use meters, they use feet, so they have no idea what 2 bloody meters are. And secondly, when it comes to families, you want to be able to see your children, you don't want to see the 15 people that are in the camp in front of you. So I think if we had those posts up explaining what to do and what not to do, and I have said to people, just as a courtesy, oh gosh, do you know he has a wee fine? And they just look at me like I've got 10 heads. They don't care. So that brings me to my last point, is enforcement. And I think we've got very friendly support staff down on the beach, but with all due respect, I don't know what the fines are, but they're clearly not working. Nobody really cares if they give a wee amount of money. They're still going to put up their big encampment and do whatever they like. Somebody alluded to earlier, I think it was Kathy, and my first time here, so I met this lovely lady tonight. I agree with her that you absolutely need to have some protection from the sun. My Irish skin burns like mad, so I'm always got the brolly up, but I think there should be a little bit of sun protection for children, but not these great big beasts of things. And thank you for listening, and I really love Sylvan Lake.
Thank you. Council, do we have any questions for clarification? Thank you. Okay. Mr. Roth, or Rath? Yep. Welcome.
Thank you. Where's that red button there?
And you'll just give it a moment and see the timer
Okay.
count you down, and then we are happy to hear from you.
Okay. Hi, I'm Robert Roth, and this is Allison Wilson. We're representing about $30,000 worth of annual residential tax revenue and amongst 100 feet of direct frontage onto Centennial Park and 300 feet of Lakeshore Drive. I'm here to express my disapproval of the Centennial Park canopy zone. Our family cabins are arguably the most affected by tents being set up in the area, as it will block our sight line to the lake, increase noise, congestion, and garbage. We are not interested in blocking our lake view or staring at Tent City from our balcony. Overcrowding tents in public parks is not a new problem. However, this is not a new problem in other Canadian jurisdictions and has been fixed by amended bylaws. Barrie, Ontario is one of the best comparisons due to its freshwater beaches, high summer tourism volumes, residential cottage ownership, waterfront congestion pressures. Barrie amended its park use bylaws to prohibit tents, canopies, oversized sunshades, unless supported by no more than 1 pole and 1 wall. The city cited safety concerns, blocked sight lines, equitable beach access, overcrowding, lifeguard parent visibility. There are very similar examples from Fort Erie, Ontario, Kelowna, BC, Curtis Lake, BC, and so on. Our suggestion is to ban tents, enclosed shelters, and 4-pole canopies throughout the entire lakefront public use corridor, including Centennial Park, except for single-pole umbrellas, small baby sun shelters under 1 meter square, approximately. Like I said, this is not a new concept to us, this is a new concept to us, so to some it feels harsh or unfair to implement these rules, but they're actually quite common throughout the Canadian jurisdictions that are overrun by park tourism, and it is time for us to align with them. Sylvan Lakers are the ones paying for the park, so we should stop catering to tourists who want to set up a day village and import food and supplies from Calgary and Edmonton and are not here to support local business. Thank you.
Like Rob said, we live directly across from Centennial Park, and back in 2007, when the town began redeveloping the waterfront and removed the road in front of our houses to build Centennial Park, the residents were sold a very different vision than what we see today. By the time that redevelopment was completed in 2017, we were told this would create a beautiful open park space for families and residents to enjoy together. Instead, what has happened is that many of us who live directly across feel completely overwhelmed by the overcrowding, the tents, the garbage, the noise, the speeding, the loud exhaust, the music, and the chaos all summer long, and every year it gets worse. We continue to pay an increase in taxes year over year, yet somehow our experience and enjoyment for the actual residents who lives here continues to decline. We should be focused on reducing congestion and improving pedestrian circulation, not making it worse. The result of only allowing canopies in the park will be the creation of a high-density day camp environment, rather than preserving the park as an open, shared public space. If you ban large structures on the sand, but allow them in the park directly in front of our homes, then Centennial Park simply becomes a tent village, and we've already experienced a major loss of green space. As visitor volumes continue to grow, unrestricted canopy use will only accelerate maintenance costs and damage to the park. When this Centennial Park development came into play, we were sold on development and revitalization, but the outcome has not matched the vision that was presented to us. And I don't believe that the proposed solution solves the actual problem. It simply moves the problem from the beach into Centennial Park. And it also creates confusion for visitors and complicates enforcement efforts. And what's especially frustrating is that these decisions continue to happen without meaningful consultation with the people who are most impacted. It's very concerning that council waited until right before May Long weekend to address this. It has only been a matter of weeks, and there's been very little communication with residents living directly beside the situation. At the last meeting, a report was mentioned, but the groups listed that were consulted was just municipal enforcement, parks, fire, tourism, and communications, no residents. So what we ask is that you go back and look at the original vision for Centennial Park and ask yourselves honestly whether this has achieved the outcome the residents were promised, because from where we sit as residents, it has not. Please restrict all canopy structures and give us our park and lake back. Thank you.
Council ask if there's any clarifying questions. Sure, Councillor Johannesson.
I think, first of all, great job. I think you hit on all the points. You said 2007, you guys have been there since, is that what you said?
1950, my family's had the cabin right at Centennial Park.
Okay, awesome.
Yeah.
In that time, in that entire time, as we've seen the tourism obviously explode, has anyone ever consulted you guys about what it is that you would like to see there? Because, you know, we do mention people say it's just people having joy and enjoying their day, but it's obviously taking away joy from you guys. One, have you been consulted at all since that time? And two, in your opinion on what you're seeing, has it gotten worse or better over the years?
Well, I can comment, things have gotten crazier over the last 5 years for sure. I don't know what the reason is. I'm guessing it's social media, you know, population in general increasing. And to be honest, over the last, you know, I really haven't been in tune with just the politics and the rules. You know, we've been busy raising families. So I don't know over, you know, since 07, I don't know if I have a good comment since then, but.
Our family has been at the cabin next door since about 2005, and we've never been consulted on anything. If we try to get involved, we have to read 200 pages worth of minutes and try to figure out what's going on and find out how to get involved, because we've never been consulted on any of these projects. And we find with small kids especially, trying to cross the street and enjoy the park really challenging in the summer months.
Okay, thank you. Send me an email if you don't mind. I'd like to come down there and just see what it looks like from your point of view sometime, so I can see that.
Sure.
Thank
that'd
you.
be great. Thanks so much.
Thank you. All right, next we'll welcome up Mr. McWade. And gallery, if I could mention, we have a bigger group than normal. We do need you to remain quiet, regardless of which way you agree or disagree. But clapping, commentary, all of that makes it really difficult for anyone else who would like to hear in council chambers. So I'll just ask that you refrain from doing that, regardless of where you sit on any of these items. We will have a really thorough debate coming up later in this meeting. Thank you. And you know the drill. You'll see the countdown, and we're happy to hear from you.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. My name is Sean McQuaid, and I've been a resident of Sylvan Lake for 37 years. I've watched our community evolve over the past 4 decades, constantly working to balance the needs of local families, business, tourism, and a year-round community. That balance is worth protecting. A great deal of time has been spent debating beach regulations these past few months. I appreciate the care and thought that Council has given this issue, and I agree that rules should be simple and enforceable. But simplicity alone cannot be the sole goal of governance. Good policy sometimes requires balance. I want to advocate for a perspective that I've heard a few more times tonight, but I think represents a reasonable middle ground, adopting a policy that explicitly allows small sunshades for infants on the lakefront. We can maintain safety, visibility, and fairness without treating every family setup as a problem. I can't imagine a young family visiting our town, planning carefully for a full day out, bringing a small shade structure, thinking that they're planning ahead and being safe, simply to protect their infant from 35-degree heat, only to be approached by a bylaw officer and told to take it down because it's been deemed obstructive and unsightly by town council. A story like that spreads quickly, leaves a bad taste in the mouth of visitors, and drives them to other beaches. Furthermore, proposals to nickel and dime tourists by charging for canopies or park benches to simply sit down are short-sighted. It would likely cost more to administer than would ever generate, and does not reflect the welcoming, family-oriented community I want to see. Tourism is deeply connected to our local survival, despite those that claim otherwise. Sylvan Lake's recent data showed that 670,000 tourists contributed roughly $67 million to our economy in 2024. Our town of 18,000 residents simply cannot replace that economic impact. If tourism drops by just 10%, every man, woman, and child in Sylvan Lake would need to spend an extra $400 this summer to make up that difference. As a local consumer with a family of 4, I simply don't have an extra $1,600 in my budget to replace that loss. We do not need to bend over backwards for visitors. They must respect our lake and our bylaws as much as we would expect locals to. But openly celebrating fewer tourists is dangerous for our local economy. It takes decades to build a reputation as a destination and only moments to damage it. Finally, as a lifelong resident, I'm increasingly concerned by the tone of public discourse surrounding local issues. Online spaces have created an echo chamber where nuance is lost, and those with the luxury of hours of free time to post daily, conduct online polls, and attack dissenters style themselves as the unelected voice of the town. They are not. There's a large silent majority in Sylvan Lake that refuses to wade into this online vitriol. People who still value respect, balance, and practical solutions, who want this town to succeed together. Sylvan Lake is a family town, a resident town, and a tourist town. These identities are not mutually exclusive. I deeply appreciate the thoughtful leadership required on this council to listen to all sides and balance competing needs, rather than simply reacting to whichever voices happens to be loudest in the moment. I love this town, and I want to see it continue growing in a way that is welcoming, balanced, and sustainable for everyone. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Council, do we have any questions for clarification? Thank you for your presentation. And our final open mic presentation tonight is Mr. Detre. Welcome. As you walk up, I will note, I think we might need a reserve chair for Mike going forward. Although we have a full house tonight, he is someone who has been attending our council meetings for many years every week, providing us with lots of feedback. So appreciate you back tonight. And just a few more seconds, you'll hear the beeps, and then we're happy to hear from you.
Your Worship, Councillor, good afternoon. Sylvan Lake's draft budget brochure from 2025 indicates on page 3 that the average residential homeowner would see its property tax increase from $25.99 in 2004 to $27.27 in 2025, a 4.9% increase, somewhat reasonable. Sylvan Lake draft budget brochure from 2026 indicate on the same page 3 that the average residential homeowner would see its property tax increase from $3,014 in 2025 to $32.41 in 2026, a 7.5% increase. Definitively, the message did not reach the people computing our property assessment tax notice. We were charged $3,921 in 2024 and $4,249 for 2025, which is an 8.4% increase. By the way, I repeat, it was forecasted at 4.9. And for 2026, we are being charged $4,699, which is a 10.6% increase from 2025, again, compared to the announced 7.5% increase. So in summary, we're 8.4% versus the announced 4.9% increase from 2025, and then a 10.6% versus the announced 7.5% increase for 2026, represent a total of excess of 6.6% of actual versus announced over 2 years. That starts to be a very noticeable discrepancy. I do not know if it is a privilege to pay so much more than the average homeowner, or if we should cry, but our house did not change since we bought it in 2018, neither did our pension, and we didn't win the lottery that I know of. I do not need to discuss the subtlety of the assessment process and the evolution of the mill rate. What is important for any property owner, and I'm pretty sure the room is full of them, is a final dollar amount exacted from the privilege of remaining Sylvan Lake resident, and this amount is getting out of hand. For good measure, I feel compelled to point out that the Alberta CPI increased by a mere 2.7% in 2024 and by 2.3% in 2025. Obviously, 2026 is pending. And this is nothing like this extravagant municipal percentage, either forecast or actual. I would finally like to remember this assembly that the commitment to contain Sylvan Lake budget was part of the program of some councillor candidate who are listening to me today. Respectfully submitted, Mike Détaille.
Thank you. Council, do we have any questions for clarification? Seeing none, I'll thank you for your presentation.
Yep.
All right, next we'll move along to the adoption of the agenda. Would someone like to make that motion, Council? Councillor Iwanicki, thank you.
I move that we adopt the agenda.
Thank you. All those in favor? Opposed? That was carried. Ms. Devlin, I did not defer to you. Were there any changes you'd like to the agenda?
There were none, Your Worship.
I'm so happy to hear that now that the motion has been completed. And I'll just note that Ms. Phillips, our CAO, is away on business for our community, so Ms. Devlin is the acting CAO. But I do know that Ms. Phillips is also available to us online if required. All right, next I'll move along to the consent agenda. Consent agenda is an item used to increase meeting efficiency. Any items marked with an asterisk on our agenda cover page are ones recommended by administration to be included in the consent agenda. But any councillor has the opportunity to pull any of these items if they've got extensive questions or would like to have a debate on the item. So council, I'll just ask that you do that prior to the motion being made. Is there any items that we'd like to remove from consent agenda tonight? Seeing none, would someone like to make that motion? Councillor Iwanicki.
Yeah, it's my favorite part of the meeting.
Appreciate that.
I move that the 2026-05-12 regular meeting of council meeting minutes be approved as presented, that the 2026-05-19 governance and priorities meeting of council meeting minutes be approved as presented, that council accept the joint use planning agreement as presented in AIR 1402 and authorize the chief administrative officer to enter into the agreement, that council grant first reading to bylaw 1953-2026, being a bylaw to amend the town's land use bylaw 1695-2015 as requested in AIR 1412, and that council set June 23rd, 2026 at 4 p.m. in the council chambers of the municipal government building as the date, time, and place for the public hearing for bylaw 1953-2026, and that council accept the 2026 Q1 Community Services Report as presented in AIR 1409.
Excellent, thank you. Final opportunity for any councillors that would like to pull or mention an item. Seeing none, all those in favor? And opposed? And that is carried unanimously. Thank you. Next, move along to a delegation from Ms. Badurni. And our time clock on this wall only works for 5-minute increments, so we have a timer over on Ms. Reynolds' desk that will set for your 10-minute delegation time. Thank you. And if you can start with an introduction, we're happy to hear from you.
Victoria Paterni, landowner in Sylvan Lake since 2004. Thank you for accepting my delegation. The situation at the beach has become an issue for so many Lakers. How many times do we have to hear that Lakers avoid Lakeshore in the summer? This is a community screaming to be acknowledged by Council for Change. They do not care how inclusive and welcoming you want to be to tourists. They want to enjoy the spaces they pay for. Over the past week or so, there have been a few online polls in which over 85% of up to 1,000 people wanted to see a complete ban of barbecues, tents, canopies, etc. Why is Council not willing to listen? I have taken many opportunities to offer suggestions to the Council over the years and will do so again tonight. We as a community face many problems, primarily the need for revenue from tourism directly to the town to lighten the burden on the taxpayer. The solution would have been to ban all tents and barbecues and try and encourage people that want to respect our beach and invest in our community to visit until the town got a handle on the situation. However, after the sly move at the last council meeting, it is my understanding that canopies will be allowed. Did the town notify every homeowner from 42nd along the park of their intent to condense canopies in front of their homes? The town has been presented with a challenging situation with tourists who do not contribute to the community. Busing companies are dropping off people with their tents, coolers, barbecues, etc. I have watched this repeatedly. These people are not contributing to the community at all. I inquired with the town last week if these busing companies get a business permit, and I was told by Chanel Brooker, your tourism supervisor, that, and I quote, "The town is not able to require that they hold a municipal business license." Unfortunately, this is false. I replied and informed her that busing companies, tour operators, and charter services bringing visitors into Canmore must obtain either a non-annual, non-residential business license or a temporary non-residence business license for short-term operations. This also happens within the parks, but considering Canmore is a community like ours, it's relevant and comparable. Will Sylvan Lake take steps to require companies such as Signature Charters, who drop people off at the beach currently, to obtain a business license? And will Sylvan Lake only provide a license with a provision that the busing company only allows people to bring items to the community that fall within our bylaws? For instance, no tents. Some tourists do not sit on public toilet seats. They stand on them with little to no concern for the mess they make. They also dig holes to use as toilets and urinate in public spaces. I confirmed with 2 town employees recently that the bathrooms are disgusting in the summers, in particular the bathrooms at the playground, which will be closest to your proposed canopy zone. How does the town propose to address this issue, and what steps and preparation has the town taken to expand the number of bathrooms available within this proposed zone? Many tourists do not respect our bylaws or our community. Over the past 2 years, I've had many family members come to visit from their tourist-impacted communities. 10 of us walked down to Son of a Beach through what they called packed, chaos, disgusting, and filthy, only to go for lunch in maybe half-full restaurant on a hot day. If there are so many paying tourists, these restaurants should have a line at the door, no different than the places my family comes from. We should want people to return to Sylvan Lake because it is clean, maintained, and beautiful. Last week, I saw Mayor Hanson walking on Lakeshore while many dogs were in the no-dog areas. I called across the street and let her know, and her response was, "Nah, not all call bylaw or that's not good, just a dismissive gesture." So if the mayor is okay with bylaws being in place and not enforced, what sort of example is she setting for town employees? Bylaws' job needs to be simplified so that things are easy to enforce, and they need to know top down that what they are doing is the right thing. During the May long weekend, people had open flame cooktops on the ground, large motorhome camping mats with only a few people, and tents in the current no-tent zone. And in Centennial Park, there were screened-in and tarped canopies. One was tied to the picnic shelter. How will the town address people enclosing their canopies? Here are my suggestions under the current proposals the town has made. Using the parking app or something similar to allow for rental of picnic tables and canopy permits. Suggestion: allow small portable barbecues with small camping propane canisters at all of the 30 picnic tables in Centennial Park for a fee. All tables can be labeled with a QR code, and you can do rentals from 8 to 12, 12 to 4, and 4 to 8. For example, $25 per rental on a busy weekend is a max revenue of $22.50 per day. The picnic tables under the shelters can currently be rented through the Next Source for 4 or 8 hours, tourists paying more than residents. I recommend QR codes on these tables as well at no cost, or at a cost no less than the current charge at the same increments as the other tables. We should be charging for these spaces every day. No charge for residents, just like parking for tables not under the shelter. My rationale: we should be looking for maximum profit in our short summer season. This keeps barbecues at designated areas along a main pathway and makes it easy for bylaw to monitor and enforce. It also makes people accountable for cleaning up, as the town would know who they are. You can see these types of systems in Commerce City, Colorado, Bridgeport, West Virginia, Tampa, Florida, San Mateo, California, and so on. As you can see, this is not an unusual practice in busy areas. Even at the Gulls Stadium, if you want a picnic table, you rent it. They also have a short season, and they are taking steps for maximum revenue. The town should be doing the same. Suggestion: allow 10 by 10 canopies on a 12-foot wide strip on the north and east sides of Centennial Park to 42nd Street. Require the purchase of a canopy permit purchased through a QR code, which can be attached to light poles, for instance. No charge for Lakers. Rationale: this allows for unrestricted play of all sorts in the center of the park, no disruption if an event was taking place, and the canopies will be close to rubbish bins. Also, this area is visible for bylaw to view from the main walkway. Overall, the park will look more organized, the grass can still grow, and it is not as much of an eyesore for those who own homes along that stretch of Lakeshore. In time, if it works, the town could eventually sand or pave the strip so there's definition between grass and canopy permit area. In the meantime, they can apply a chalk line. It is simple and only takes as long as it does to walk the stretch to apply. Renting spaces for you and your family is not uncommon and can be seen in places like West Ed Water Park, where you rent a cabana. Suggestion: Current free parking on 50 Avenue changed to pay parking and added to Zone 2500, $5 per hour, and then changed Zone 2500 to a maximum 2 hours. Rationale being, every available space should have a parking fee and the downtown core should have a time limit of no more than 2 hours, same as Red Deer. This allows a flow of traffic, which is good for local businesses. How are the businesses and restaurants downtown expected to draw in business when the parking spots in front of them are available for all-day parking? Suggestion: restrict scooters to the southwest side of the train tracks, the rental scooters. These scooters and e-bikes along the Lakeshore Pathway and the busy downtown core are a growing concern. Regarding the rental scooters, we have seen up to 4 people on one rental scooter. We have seen wrecks requiring medics. We've seen them left in the roadway, blocking access to property, to crosswalks, left in car parking spaces, in the center of pathways, pushed downstairs to the beach, on the beach, and in the lake itself, all within 3 blocks of our Lakeshore home, let alone the rest of town. They are not picked up by the company as they are supposed to be daily. They are left in our community like litter. The riders do not wear the supplied helmets, and they most often travel at max speed through and past pedestrians and leisure bicycle riders, both young and old. Along the north side of 50 Avenue, the sidewalk is narrow, and when cars are parked, things get tight. The scooters are a hazard. I've spoken to urgent care staff and a local physiotherapist who speak of the injuries they see throughout the summer caused by the e-scooters. Will the town continue to allow and encourage something that negatively impacts our already often at capacity urgent care during the summer months? A reminder, years ago there was a bylaw that ice cream carts could not be used on the north side of the tracks, so they didn't take away from local business, and their movement is still restricted to certain zones along Lakeshore. This shows that bylaws can be put in place to protect business and to protect people. Suggestion: no personally owned e-bikes or scooters on the Lakeshore Drive pathway. Rationale being that most e-bikes are legally capped to assist 32 kilometers in Canada. However, depending on the bike's class, some go as fast as 45. Entry scooters start at 24, performance scooters up to 56. Considering Lakeshore Drive is 30 kilometers for vehicles, common sense would tell us that anything able to exceed 30 kilometers an hour on a walking pathway amongst pedestrians young and old is unsafe. And expecting bylaw to check speed limitations on each scooter is unreasonable. Therefore, a complete restriction is most practical. Suggestion: adequate, clear signage with pictures and fine cost. People with limited English can understand pictures, and typically the word no and providing the cost of infraction makes people more cautious before breaking the rules. Before you say we must be welcoming and inclusive, or that you can't restrict a business or the movement of people, I ask you to read again what I've read to you. Open your minds, look at how other communities handle busy tourism seasons. I then ask of you to listen to Lakers, support true tourism, stop lying to appease others, move forward with the goal of preserving the lake, preserving our parks, and respecting the contributions every taxpayer makes every year so that you can do your job, which should be Lakers first always. Thank you.
Thank you. Council will ask if there's any clarifying questions. Seeing none, I'll thank you. All right, Council, we will move along into business item 7A, which is the highly anticipated Parks Bylaw, into third reading. Now, Council, I don't believe there'll be an introduction of this. We do already have a motion on the floor by Councillor Mearns, so we're just picking up the previous motion. We don't need another one to start conversation. What I will ask, though, Council, is that to please compile your thoughts. We have in our procedural bylaw that we do each have the option for up to 5 minutes to have conversation around this. So please compile all of your thoughts on it into one chunk so that we can do one round. And then after we've done that, anyone who wishes to speak, we can put amendments on the floor if required and if we're able to do that. And then we can continue on with the vote tonight. So Council, now that we have a motion on the floor, unless Mr. Lebstack, you have anything else to introduce? You're here for questions as we need them. I'll ask if anyone would like to comment. Councillor Johannesson.
Yeah, so I would, when it's time, I'd like to put an amendment on the floor as well. I think obviously a lot of people are here to listen to what we're doing. Unfortunately, the opportunity to have the preference of the majority of the people to ban all tents and canopies got shut down, and we can't bring that back, I guess, until next year. So we have to come up with the next best option, which I'll speak about when I make my amendment. But I think it's important to mention a few points when I look into the crowd and see the amount of people here. And some people on different sides of the fence of this. Too many times in this chambers by councillors around the horseshoe, I've heard the term, they're just loud voices. And to me, that is incredibly disrespectful, whether they come from Facebook, which often seems to get dismissed, even though our own communications director did a survey and the vast majority of people wanted their information from social media, because that's the reality of the world we live in. I don't dismiss those voices, and I don't think they're loud voices. I actually think they're incredibly important voices. And if we choose which voices to listen to and dismiss voices that maybe don't stand on what we agree with, we're not doing our jobs, and it makes me incredibly uncomfortable to do that. So I think no voice is a loud voice. Even the people that spoke today that I disagree with, their voice matters too. They're not just loud voices, and they're not just loud voices because they're on social media. These polls that are put up that get 1,000 votes are not just loud voices. These are people desperately expressing their opinions, screaming from the rooftops to be heard, because council for many years has been negligent in listening to people. We got 100 emails about the tent issue, and 95 of them wanted a full ban on everything, 100. Now, some people say, oh, that's just 0.1% of the population. We don't get emails about anything. In my entire term on 7 months, we've had maybe 5, 6, 7 emails from residents about concerns, and none of them on the same subject. To get 100 emails within a 3-day period on the same subject with the same voice, that's massive in that context. Those aren't just loud voices. That's the community screaming to be heard. We need to today, council, to come up with the best compromise possible now that we've eliminated the opportunity for an outright ban, to stop dismissing the voices because they're on social media or Facebook or email or whatever they are. Like, how else do we make decisions if we're not listening to the voices from whatever platform they choose? How do we make decisions other than our own personal biases? Our job is to listen to the people, and anyone that says it's just a loud voice, which was spoken in these chambers last week by a councillor, calling them loud voices, is completely disrespectful, it's dismissive, and it's irresponsible. And so we have to make sure that we now come to a place where we can, I guess, compromise to a point. I'm annoyed and upset that we can't get the full ban, which is what the vast majority of people want. A couple points towards the tourism factor. A lot of people are saying, I'm very vocal, $50 a day parking to lessen the amount of tourists that come here. I'm glad and proud to say it, because the people that aren't willing to pay $50 for parking are the people that aren't spending money in our economy. So this notion that, well, you're trying to get tourists to stay away and it's going to harm our economy. No, it isn't. We're trying to get the right tourists here. Now, what I mean by that, before someone twists my words, is the people that come here and value our beach, the people that respect our beach, the people that want to come and spend money. Try taking a family of 4 to the movies for under $50, restaurant under $50. Go to the Calgary Zoo with a family of 4, it's $130, plus parking. So $50 a day to come and enjoy our beach for the entire day is the cheapest entertainment that you could possibly find for a family of 4, let alone a family of 10. So the people that don't want to come aren't going to impact our tourism economy in any way. It's going to actually open up more space for our locals and our seniors to enjoy the beach, who will then spend money down there. And the people that are willing to pay the $50 are willing to do that because they value our beach and they respect our beach.
Thank you, Councillor Johannesson. Would anyone else like to comment on this item? Councillor Mearns.
I'm just going to read it so I don't forget anything. So, over the past month, we've heard through social media, emails, council chambers, and around this horseshoe that the majority of Sylvan Lakers don't want tents or canopies anywhere in our community. I've spent a considerable amount of time reflecting on where that statement is coming from and trying to better understand it. There are a number of social media polls conducted, council received emails from residents, and there have been many conversations in the community. I decided to compare some of those numbers against the actual population and voter statistics in Sylvan Lake to provide some context around the claim that a majority of Sylvan Lakers oppose tents or canopies anywhere. As an important note, council was unanimous in previous discussion regarding umbrellas only on the north side of Lakeshore Drive. Because of that, much of this discussion should really be focused specifically on Centennial Park. Sylvan Lake's estimated population in 2025 was 17,897 residents. There are approximately 12,410 eligible voters. In the 2025 municipal election, 3,283 residents voted. In the largest social media poll, 773 people voted no to the question, should tents be permitted in Centennial Park? It's important to note that the question did not reference canopies, and there is no way to confirm if all these voters are residents of Sylvan Lake. This social media page has approximately 15,800 members. I personally only received 63 emails. Of those 63 emails, 53 stated opposition to tents, with only some also opposing canopies. For purposes of this discussion, I have included the 53 emails that had stated no in my calculations. When using 786 votes casted as no and compared to the broader population numbers I mentioned above, the percentages are as follows. For the social media group with 15,800 members, this represents 5.22% of that group. For the population of Sylvan Lake of 17,897, this represents 4.61%. For the eligible voters, 12,410 that are in Sylvan Lake, this represents 6.65%. And for those 3,283 residents that voted in 2025, this only represents 25.15%. As a caveat to these numbers, let's also agree that not every single eligible voter in Sylvan Lake is a part of the social media page, and the specific poll was ran on, and we can also confidently say that not all of the 3,283 residents that voted in 2025 municipal election will be part of the social media page. This is data that's available for anyone here to pull up and calculate themselves. I have not been able to prove with the data that the majority of Sylvan Lakers are opposed to canopies or even tents in Centennial Park. I also want to acknowledge the work of the Tourism Development Committee. This committee is made up of community members, business owners, including restaurants along Lakeshore Drive, as well as tourism operators. 2 weeks ago, they spoke to council about the importance of tourism in our community and the reliance many local businesses have on it. In addition, we have received the 2025 Economic Impact Tourism in Central Alberta report, which clearly underlines the significant economic contribution tourism makes to Sylvan Lake. That information cannot be ignored as part of this discussion. Based on everything I've outlined, I would believe an injustice to ignore the actual data before us. I fully acknowledge that there are Sylvan Lakers who do not want canopies in Centennial Park, and their voices deserve to be heard and respected. However, I do not believe the evidence supports the statement that the majority of Sylvan Lakers oppose them entirely. I also think it's important to recognize that we operate under representative democracy. Residents elect members of council to make decisions on behalf of the community, including passing bylaws, approving budgets, setting policies, and weighing public feedback alongside the broader interests and long-term direction of the community as a whole. I believe the town of Sylvan Lake, including council administration, are unique in the level of transparency and public engagement we provide. We create many opportunities throughout the year for residents to share their feedback, and we genuinely value those perspectives. Even when opinions differ, the feedback is discussed, considered, and weighed carefully in the decisions we make. In this case, after spending several hours discussing this matter, I believe the feedback has been heard loud and clear. During the election, residents expressed concerns about tents on the beach. Earlier this year, council acted in that direction, and if third reading passes tonight, there will be no tents or canopies other than umbrellas permitted on the beach. At the same time, we also heard differing perspectives regarding Centennial Park. I believe the motion before us at third reading reflects a reasonable and balanced compromise based on the feedback received. I'm also confident that council will revisit this issue at the end of the season to evaluate how it worked and whether any further adjustments are necessary. For those reasons, I'll be supporting third reading as it stands this evening and look forward to a great summer in Sylvan Lake for both our residents and visitors.
Thank you, Councillor Mearns. Right on the nick of time. Just for clarity, the Mario theme song you heard wasn't somebody phoning me. That was my 5-minute timer. So you just missed it a second time. Council, would anyone else like to weigh in? And the reason why hands might not be flying is we have had quite extensive conversations around this. Are there any amendments that final opportunity? Councillor Oostende, sure.
I tried to pick up on many comments made in open mic session that we should consider outside of this debate as well, because our park bylaw doesn't include things, all things that have been brought up tonight. And just a couple of thoughts that jumped to my mind as I was writing things down. And one idea was that weekday and weekend.
Councillor Oostende, I'll just jump in. I hear some chatter from the gallery, and I'll just ask if you could please keep side conversations to a minimum or take a step outside. Thank you. Go ahead, Councillor Oostende.
You bet. So weekday and weekend was something we could consider in terms of our parking rates in future or in present, but not in tonight's debate because it's not part of this bylaw. Family tone was a big item to me. And I'd said it last meeting too, about the idea of the only thing I wasn't feeling really good about was the idea of babies, shade structures, and I wasn't prepared in that meeting to make it because I didn't want us to mess it up after a long meeting, and when you make something in a bylaw, it's very hard to change afterwards. But it's something maybe I'd still consider even tonight if someone's given it more thought as well. Speed of scooters. I think we have to look at that again and review what's happening, and also the contract we have with them to make sure they are doing due diligence across our town with reporting and acting on complaints. It's not so much even that we're moving the canopies, I think it's that people are concerned about concentration of canopies, and that was in my mind too, even in my arguments about what part of Centennial Park we would use. So I think that's not an undue or a worry that we should dismiss. It's something that we should, as Councillor Mearns mentioned about refining over time, the effect of our bylaws and how people change their behaviors around what we put up as bylaws. And jumping into some other thoughts, when I first came to town, I couldn't believe what people said. I said, I didn't go on the north side of the tracks once it's summertime. That's been since 2007. This has been our headache as residents, and we're always trying to find the right balancing act with all these pressures of having this fantastic place that attracts visitors just like it attracted me to come to this town. And personally, I'm good with the crowds most of the time, and I think it's even fun to go see the crowds. The smell of a barbecue cooking something I don't know how to cook, just doesn't bother me. I actually love it. I do find the compromise that I've had to come up with in terms of shrinking the areas and the number of and types of shading we'd use, because they really didn't bother me the same way they bother some other people. This compromise is doable, and we will still have to refine it. I am positive, and I think we have found a compromise, except for that baby thing. You know, like, how do you carry a young family to the beach and have that, simple structure? There's a whole debate that's happened around these issues included as one of the frustrations we have, and I have had, I've talked about it more from a parks horticulture angle many times, is we don't take care of any of our parks to the standard I would love. And that means hiring another horticulturist, an arborist, which we're doing by cleaning up more of the garbage, weeding more of the beds, trimming more of the shrubs. And I'm not a perfect gardener in my own garden, but I believe that we need to do this as a community more. And the budget decisions done months ago and some of the other changes, the increase in enforcement, are all things that, boy, do I ever hope it's going to work. And so that's reasons why I've supported the big picture and some of these details that we're at. And they're not perfect. And maybe I'm kind of happy with them, but I know other people aren't. And other people are happy. As alluded to, you know, whose voices do we always hear? Because not everybody speaks, and certainly not on social media. Some people just watch it as kind of an entertainment even. So these are things I think about too. And yeah, I've back when I first came and heard those complaints, first open house I went to redesigning this park are all part of this continuous evolution. I'll pause there.
Thank you, Councillor Ostindi. Is there anyone else who would like to get on? I should have a much more professional end to that, but I don't have time to fiddle with that right now. So we're going to continue on the trend. Councillor Iwanicki.
What's wrong with Mario? I'll be super brief. I've been open when I expressed it in January, when I expressed it at our second debate about this issue, when I expressed it at our third debate about this issue, and I'm going to say it again for the fourth time. I have been deeply uncomfortable with a lot of the path that we've taken, and my principal concern has been tied to these kids' pop-up tents. They're not very big, they don't obstruct views, and it just rubs me the wrong way as someone with young kids. That being said, what I tell my own clients all the time is that the sign of a good compromise is when both sides to that compromise are unhappy. Because at the end of the day, you're all giving something up in order to come to an agreement that ultimately, typically, you're going to be comfortable with in the future, right? When you look back with the benefit of hindsight, I've heard lots of debates on the tent city issue. I've heard lots of debates on a lot of things. I think that where we've gotten is a compromise that I'm not happy with, but I'm willing to vote in favor of. If we further move down that path and further limiting, I've said it before, that degree of comfort starts to evaporate pretty quickly. I would, again, reiterate, I would love to see a discussion on these kids' pop-up tents, but we bandied that back and forth the last meeting and it didn't seem to be on the table, so, which I'm loath to see go. In any case, that's all I really have to say, so.
That was an interesting echo. Councillor Payne, let me just restart my timer and then happy to hear from you. Go ahead.
Oh, I won't be 5 minutes. I think one of the things to remember in all of this conversation is that we revisit this again. Like, this is not a bylaw that goes into place and is here in perpetuity. It's here for a period of time for us to see how things work and to review and to change. That's the wonderful thing about this process, is nothing is etched in stone. So I do have a similar reservation to the one that Councillor Iwanicki has pointed out and that Mr. McQuaid pointed out earlier. Having raised 3 of my children here and being at the beach quite frequently, we always had those pop-up tents. But I also understand that an umbrella is going to work wonderfully well. So I'm happy with the compromises we've had. I do think that there's room to move on some of the other issues, particularly in Centennial Park. But again, we have this season to endure, and we've laid out a lot that we want changed. When it comes to enforcement, when it comes to bylaws that have been done, when it comes to bylaws that we're going to be looking at even later today. So all of these things are changes that we're chasing. So as we go through it, we just need to all recognize this is not permanent. This is an opportunity for us to put into place a beginning, and that beginning can change, and then things can move forward. So I think just to keep that in mind as we go.
Thank you. Councillor Bilodeau.
A few things that I heard tonight that I'd like to add to the comments that I had for this evening. I like the idea of the East Skirter area being limited. I know we're talking about that a little bit later tonight. Maybe we should look at that. I really like the red and green post suggestion. We are going to be adding signage with all the new bylaws that we're going to put into effect for the parks this evening. Maybe we can look at that. It wasn't on my radar, the tents for babies, simply because we are allowing the single pole umbrella and it could be used for babies, but I am open to the idea that I feel the same way that Councillor Iwanicki does, that I don't want to do the wrong thing. I don't want to do an injustice to the children, the babies. They need protection, so maybe we can look at that. I do feel we got lost the last council meeting in the confusion and debate over canopies at the last meeting, so I would like to loop back to administration's suggestion to propose restrictions on barbecues. I think cooking appliances or barbecues don't belong on the lakefront. The town has specifically designed picnic tables for barbecuing with a rack over a concrete pad, and they are located in Centennial Park. I would support restricted use of barbecues in this area. It's cleaner, it's safer, especially given the dry conditions of the grass. I don't think that we need to be charging for the use of that this year, since we made some substantial fee increases in our visitor pay parking for the season already. The purpose of the canopies in Centennial Park was to offer a balance, and in my opinion, give a more ideal option for shade that didn't cause damage to the grass that putting a single pole umbrella would do. The issue now is the number of canopies, so I've been asking questions to find ways to permit these, including I asked administration about could we use hotspot, and that won't work. I did question if we could permit canopies in the park, and I'm hearing that it's confusing and it's difficult for bylaw to manage. So, Mr. Lebsack, would we be able to designate an area for canopies in Centennial Park so that they won't take over the park?
Through the chair, if that is the wish of council, yes, we could designate a certain area, just as a, currently we have designated anywhere between 40th and 42nd. We could certainly designate specific sections and identify them, yes.
Okay, so I would be in support if we could, we are keeping canopies because of where we're at going to third reading. I would be in support of restricting an area for the canopies at Centennial Park.
Councillor Mearns.
Just a question on that as an amendment. Councillor Payne made a similar motion to restrict areas, and that was defeated. Procedure bylaw, unless it's 100% different than what's already been defeated, cannot be revisited for 6 months.
Yes. So for clarification, I'm proposing a designated area for canopies, a little different than we had, and it might be considered the same, but I'm saying I feel that the compromise with these to control the number of canopies so we don't have chaos in the park is setting an area that's where canopies can go. And that can be within that determined area that we already did approve.
Thank you. And before we jump to the next, what I'll ask is, because we've now done a full round, really just be prepared with amendments, council, if there's something you'd like to see. I think we can vote on those fairly quickly. We will not have another 5 minutes per amendment, so we'll make sure it's very clear. We can take a pause to ensure that we understand what we are all voting on and that we've had that clarity moment, but then we'll continue on and we should be able to vote on these in fairly quick succession. So now that we've done a round, I'll ask, is anyone prepared and has some wording prepared to put together an amendment on a number of things that I've heard? Councillor Johannesson.
Okay, and I just want to be clear, because I tried to make an amendment last meeting, and then there was no discussion, and it was voted on without discussion. So I do want there to be a little bit of discussion before I make an amendment without any context, and then I just vote it down. So I'd appreciate, I don't need 5 minutes, but I'd appreciate a little bit of time to explain my rationale here. So I agree with Councillor Bilodeau completely on this. I think my amendment is going to be to allow up to 10 by 10 canopies on a 12-foot wide strip on the north and east sides of Centennial Park, and require the purchase of a canopy permit with no charge for residents of Sylvan Lake. Now, what that does, if we can picture this, and I went down there with a member of Sylvan Lake, and we talked through this, and what it does is it puts the canopy, and again, we can't do the full ban. This is my compromise. I'm unhappy with this too, but it's like Councilor Ivanicki said, both sides are unhappy. But this is the best thing in my idea. So instead of having this free-for-all where there's canopies scattered everywhere, which is visually disturbing and creates traffic and stops people from playing in the park and ruins the grass that's still good, it puts it on that north and east side of the sidewalk in a straight line. And so that way the rest of the park is still able to be used, and that grass is still good. The area that I'm speaking about on that 12-foot strip from the sidewalk, the grass is already dead there, so that solves that one problem. And secondly, I think it's important to, with Councillor Mearns' statistics that he threw out there, we can only go on by the amount of people that we hear from. That's like having an election and only 3,200 people voted, and then just deciding who gets to get in because 9,000 people didn't vote, but we're just going to guess what they want to say. We can't do that. We're not in a position to do that. I think when the word inclusion keeps being thrown about too, we're not excluding people, we're excluding tents and canopies. Inclusion actually means more people get to enjoy the beach, which is why I'm in favor of the parking fees, because then the same people aren't coming every single day, and we actually get more people that get to use the beach. That's true inclusion. Our policies here, and I spoke to bylaw today, actually.
Councillor Johannesson, I'm just going to ask if you could please keep it to the amendment. We do have our procedural bylaw that talks about our 5 minutes, so I want to make sure we don't go too far off, and we do have a number of amendments.
It's important because I didn't get an opportunity to explain the rationale last week.
If you could read it one more time so we can ensure that all of council's been able to hear that, that would be appreciated.
Sure. I just think it's important to have the context behind it, not just the wording. And I've just got one more point and then I'll be done. So the amendment would be to allow up to 10 by 10 canopies, and this could include baby shelters, this could include baby tent, whatever, to up to 10 by 10 canopies, however you want to call it, on a 12-foot wide strip on the north and east sides of Centennial Park, and require the purchase of a canopy permit, QR codes, however. I spoke to the CAO, I spoke to Ms. Phillips. She said it is possible, they can do it, they'll find a way to do it if we come to that conclusion. So to Mr. Lebsack, no charge for residents. So again, allow up to 10 by 10 canopies on a 12-foot wide strip on the north and east sides of Centennial Park, and require the purchase of a canopy permit with no charge for residents of Sylvan Lake. One last point, if you don't mind, and then I'll be done. What this does is it allows a simple, easy to follow for bylaw. I spoke to them today. They're fully in support of this. It makes their job easier. It also limits the amount of canopies because people are inherently lazy and they won't go get permits. And so there's a space. If you care about it, your birthday party, you can have your canopy there. I think this is a great compromise. The tourism committee hates it. I hate it, but it comes into the middle of it, so we're both unhappy, just like Councillor Ivanicki said. I think this is a good way to compromise with the people. Okay, I'm done.
Sure. I actually have a specific question around the permitting system, and I'll say I'm not inherently opposed to all ways to do that, but my question is, this bylaw will pass tonight. Are we able to have a system created that we can even, just to see if this discussion can go anywhere, are we able to have that system in place? It would need to be within the week. And I'm wondering if there's any administrative constraints around putting a bylaw in place when we haven't gone through that process ahead of time. Is that something we can do?
So Your Worship, I'll have to answer that in two parts. We would be able to do a system of permitting where someone phones into the office or applies into the office through an application form, we review it, and then we get back to them, which means it would not be instantaneous. It would be a few days in order to do that. Simply the same as something like a parks permit that we would give, parks access permit that we would give. We do not currently have the ability to do a QR code instantaneous. I showed up at the park, I scanned, I get my parks permit. We do not have a software system in place that could do that at this point in time, and it's something that we would have to investigate, and I can't answer right now what it would cost or how long it would be, but I'm quite certain it's not by the end of this week or even within a month. I think that finding a software system that would do that for us is going to take a little bit of time and financial resources on our part. So the only system we would have would be like a parks permit where they apply to the office and then we get back to them within, say, 48 hours.
Sure, Ms. Phillips, and then I will hop to those. Go ahead, Ms. Phillips.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. I just wanted to add some clarification. When I commented on the permitting system, my comment is administratively, it would be very challenging to implement a permit system, especially on short notice. But the other side of that was whatever decision council comes to, we will find a way to implement. So it wasn't that we can do it, it's just that we will follow your direction. So I just wanted to provide a little clarity on that.
Councillor Johannesson has an amendment to your motion?
Yeah, so and I'm not exactly sure how to do this, but I would also be comfortable with, because I think this, again, I think this is a good compromise for a number of reasons. I would be comfortable too just saying, maybe we're kind of grandfather in the permit system where let's get this bylaw in place. It's not a permit, but it's still that 12-foot zone. And then we work on the ability to get those permits in the meantime. So maybe in the short term, it's okay, you don't need a permit right away, but this is still the restricted zone. And then we can work on those details because we're in a bit of a time crunch here, obviously. So if council's more comfortable with that, like kind of for the meantime, not needing the permit, then maybe that's a way we could still go for now.
So for clarity, would you look to amend your motion to
just to
remove
make
the
it simpler,
permitting portion?
I'll do that to make it simpler. So I'll just say allow up to 10 by 10 canopies on a 12-foot wide strip on the north and east sides of Centennial Park, and that would be it.
Okay,
yeah,
thank you. We'll go to comments. I'll just remind you, we do, first I'll go to Mr. Lebsack, then Councillor Bilodeau. I'll always trump an administration bit of advice, but we do not have the time to have thorough discussion on every amendment proposed. So I will ask that we start to move this along and look for amendments vote in that fashion. Because for information of the gallery, unfortunately, we took so much time on this last week, we didn't actually finish the rest of our business items in that council meeting. And we've left a couple of items that are very ton sensitive hanging at the end of that meeting without being able to get to the point of completion. So I do want to make sure we can get to those above many other things. So, sorry, Mr. Lebsack it was. And then.
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. I just wanted to clarify the zones. So I understand the 12-foot zone, but being the north side and the east side, I'm not sure what we're referring to in terms of those areas. So are we talking just between 40th and 42nd, which was still the original, and along the existing, I'll call it the south sidewalk, the north side of the south sidewalk? Is that what we're talking about?
Yeah, so I would have liked to make it from 41st Street, but I talked to Ms. Phillips today and she said because that was defeated, we couldn't bring that back. So the zone area where we were going to allow canopies would be the same. It would just be restricted to that 12 feet from the sidewalk. And what that's doing is it's just making canopies in a straight line strip instead of bunched all over. And so it keeps the space open in Centennial and keeps the park clear, if that makes sense.
No, I'm sorry, we cannot have gallery at this point, but thank you. Councillor Bilodeau. Sorry that took so long.
No, that's okay. So if we provided wording such as with a special event permit, so we're talking about permitting, and I was looking at our bylaws, we have a special event permit already defined, activities requiring a permit. There's a whole list of them. We simply add in erect a canopy, and then those canopies are allowed, then within the special event permit, we can say 10 by 10 only, in this place only, and then we have control over the number. So maybe that's something we want to consider as a solution. is to just simply adding after Schedule B with a special event permit.
Maybe what I'll go to, we've removed that portion, so if you want to make a secondary amendment after we vote on what has been proposed, I think that's probably the cleanest way. Councillor Mearns, you had a thought on that?
Just a question for clarity. When you're talking east side, are you talking along the sidewalk on 40th Street, that strip along 40th Street?
Correct, yeah.
Okay, so from, I don't know, the tip of 40th Street down to, I guess, the parking lot, that east side?
Yeah, right? I think that's correct, yeah.
Yeah, sort of that,
Yeah.
the widest part at the end?
Yeah, and to be clear, on the park side, not the beach side. So,
Right,
yeah, on the 12 feet from the sidewalk to the parking lot area,
Right.
that, not, yeah.
And then all the way along, I think, just the, let's call it the south sidewalk, all the way along that side on the north side of the park.
Yes, yeah.
I would entertain that, but I, you know, if Councillor Johannesson's, you know, because obviously limiting some space, and if we're just going along that side, I would entertain that to 43rd then. We're not taking up that whole thing, that whole narrow part, but extend it from 43rd to 40th, I could support that.
Mr. Lebsack, you have a map before us. Could you by chance take your arrow and
Well, Your Worship, I'm not sure I can. Can I? Oh, I can, yes. So, the 12-foot strip that I believe we're referring to starts at this point here and just runs along the north side of this sidewalk. And
The other sidewalk.
the south side.
Yeah.
So outside of the
Well,
existing.
no, the sidewalk.
Oh, this
yes,
sidewalk.
Yes, yeah.
Oh,
Yeah,
on this
there.
side. Okay.
Straight line there,
Straight
yeah.
line there.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, but on the parking lot side of the sidewalk. But it is closer to the beach, but that grass is all dead already, and again, it leaves it in a strip.
So,
yes, that's correct.
side
Mr.
here. Okay.
Lipsack, yeah.
Councillor Mearns, you had a clarity? Councillor, great. Councillor Ostindi?
Just a question of clarity. The other piece on the east is to follow the curved sidewalk section, correct? We talked about the north and the east.
Sorry, my understanding,
Where would the east
for
be?
clarification, it is simply one location, starting here, running down
Yeah, that's correct.
to there.
Yeah.
Councillor Mearns?
I thought there was mention of the east side. Oh, oh, right by the concrete triangle. Okay.
Okay. Councillor Ostindi?
One thought, hearing about this, rather than getting measurements of tents and all that, is just creating basically like what we see in city parking, when you have a line, 12 feet from, we talked about liming it like a sports field, was a comment made before. Just create 12 by 12 parking spots. And you just say, that's your canopy space. That's something I envision as even simpler. I'm not really big on the permitting. As you know, I'm a tree freedom fighter in the sense of I think it's okay that some things are free in life, but I also say pragmatically we have to pay for this park. And just to be very clear, we have not subsidized tourism. We have always provided the service level of the parking fees. And now we're cranking up the parking fees because we have demanded of ourselves much better service levels. Just simplifying to that idea of a 12-foot strip, 12 by 12, and then you put your canopy in that space. That's your space. That's how I would prefer it. Yeah.
Councillor Payne?
I think, well, my concrete linear brain was looking at this differently, and I was thinking it was going to be all around, and no, I think it's a great compromise, but I really like what Councillor Bilodeau was talking about, so hopefully we can come back to that, but I'm in support of this.
Sure. We've got a motion on the floor. Council, do we have any further questions before we vote?
Let's hear what it is.
Councillor Mearns?
Can you just read your motion again, please?
So the updated motion simply is allow up to 10 by 10 canopies on a 12-foot wide strip on the north and east sides of Centennial Park.
Are you willing to add into 43rd Street along that stretch? To 43rd Street, like just the top of that little triangle?
Sorry.
It's along the top edge. It's not going any further.
Yeah, you know, I mean, sure, I think where is that? Hold on one second, I'm just trying to see. I mean, honestly, to be honest, I think we're stretching this a little bit. I like where I'm at with it. Yeah, I think that's too much. So I went down there the other day, and in that area, if it's 10 by 10, 12 feet from the sidewalk, you can fit 30, 40 canopies in that area. And so I counted it out, and I think that's plenty. I don't think we need to extend it. I would like to keep it like that. I think it's fair.
We have Councillor Ostindi, and I'll just ask, I'm sorry guys to really limit debate, but we have so many items to go through that further thoughts really can be expressed through a vote. I would love to have hours upon hours, but we do really need to move on to some of our other items.
I'm really saying amendment to an amendment to remove the 10 by 10 reference of canopy size. Speaking to the idea that it's just a 12 by 12 spot, boom, put your canopy in it.
Councillor Johansson.
So would you be suggesting essentially, like literally drawing lines like a parking lot and then making it in that spot? I'm fine with that. I think it now limits, if you go to up to 12 by 12, it limits the amount that you can have there, which is fine, I guess fine by me as well. So if that makes everybody happy, if that's the way you want to do it, then that's fine. I think most canopies are around the 10 by 10 anyways. So I'm happy to compromise there if we can get this done for sure.
I'll just add in, I would be willing to support this strip, but I'm really not interested in stalls being drawn because there are many days that are not our handful of key days over the summer that there are no tents there, and then you've got this ugly chalk line on this beautiful space, and I'm not sure that that's necessary for the handful of days that exist over that time. You've already constrained tents aren't generally rectangular, so that size already holds it to that under 12 feet.
Could there be just like a 12-foot line? So like you just painted a white line at the 12-foot mark and that it's just inside of that line? Like, is that something, instead of the stalls, just so people know past this white line, you can't put anything?
That is what I understand. Yes, Mr. Lebsack.
Yeah, Your Worship. We will create a delineation of some kind. I won't commit right now to a white painted line, but we will definitely create a delineation there to identify the area.
Is that a reasonable compromise? Great. We have a motion on the floor. Is everybody clear on what we're voting on? All those in favor? And opposed? And that is carried. Are there other motions we'd like to entertain? Councillor Iwanicki?
Just circling back to the child canopy issue, because we never actually voted on it. I would like to see an amendment then to if we're going to move forward with the smaller area, then to 14.1 to add a definition further up. But so it would read 14.1, no person shall erect, place, or use a tent or shelter except for a single pole umbrella or child canopy or whatever we would define it as. And then the defined term would say, a portable pop-up child-size canopy or tent or whatever we want to say that's limited to 1 meter by 1 meter, something like that. Just that those are still allowed then on the beach.
We have a proposed amendment on the floor. Maybe what I'll ask is, does anyone object to that size? Councillor Payne?
I think for me right now, it's taken a while for me to rationalize getting to this point, and I respect the space, but I do think that the 1 meter umbrellas really could serve most of the purpose of what you want. When I'm thinking about those pop-up tents. I use them all the time for soccer, growing up with all three of my kids. So I'm very aware of what they are, and I think when it comes to sun mitigation, I think the single pole umbrella will serve the same purpose.
Well, with differing opinions, we'll do a quick round, but of course, try and keep them as concise as possible. Councillor Mearns.
Yeah, I won't be long. My echo Councillor Payne's comment, you know, lived in Sylvan for 34 years and raised 3 kids here. And, you know, it was interesting. We went down to the beach on Saturday and Sunday and saw some umbrellas down there, and they tilted, or you could put them shorter. And, you know, my wife and kids lived with an umbrella down there. And so, you know, we can always revisit this if we, you know, next year, but I'm happy to stick with the single pole umbrellas on the beach.
Yeah, I'd echo the same thing. I have a 16-month-old daughter, and the sun is hot, and we just have to be responsible. You know, you probably can't spend a whole lot of time. She's out there in an hour. I like the umbrellas too. That's what I grew up with, and I think it's just it's a better look, and I think that's the solution to the problem or to the issue with kids, because we do need some protection. I think the single umbrella is a good compromise for that.
I'll chime in since there are no other hands in the air. I don't have a problem with those tiny baby pop-up shelters. Not that you can't achieve the same thing with an umbrella, but I'm just thinking if you already have one of them, to require someone to go purchase something different because you purchased something last year that fit last year's bylaw, and now we've made them change. This is such a small size constraint that I really don't have a challenge with it. Any other, Councillor Bilodeau?
I'd say I'd support that actually, but I still would like to see if there's any interest in adding barbecues into the.
And I'll just ask, once we do this motion, if you want to make that amendment, propose something, we'll get to that next. We have opportunity for others. Councillor Iwanicki, can you repeat your motion one more time so that everyone's clear prior to voting?
Sure. So we'd add a defined term. It could be a child-sized canopy or a child-sized tent, whatever everyone's comfortable with. That is a small pop-up shelter no larger than 1 meter squared. And then it would be added into the section 14.1. It says no person shall erect, place, or use a tent or shelter except for a single pole umbrella or small child canopy along the lakefront, et cetera, et cetera. So add an extra exception.
Sure. We all clear about what we're about to vote on, Council? Councillor Iwanicki's motion's on the floor. All those in favor? And opposed? And that is carried. Thank you. Councillor Bilodeau, would you like to propose a motion or amendment, sorry?
Well, so administration provided the different options. I'm not sure that any one is exactly what I was proposing. So I'm proposing that we restrict barbecues. I don't know if is that considered solid fuel barbecue? Is that what we want to say? Or any cooking appliance on the lake, and restrict it to the Centennial Park picnic tables.
Council, we'll open it up for brief comments. Councillor Mearns?
Yeah, it's not something that I'd entertain at this time. We spoke to Mr. Lebsack, I don't know which time when we were discussing this. Since the removal of solid fuel barbecues, and we've strictly gone with propane, there's been very few instances. So it's something that I wouldn't entertain at this time.
Councillor Iwanicki.
Yeah, and I don't mind the idea of looking at this. I just don't think this summer is the time to do it. I think maybe if we want to revisit a barbecue issue, and we can do it through the full course of standard reading of a bylaw change, maybe in the fall. Once we've seen the impact of everything, I'd support looking at it then, but I have a hard time doing it now with third reading.
I'll add in my 2 cents. A similar challenge right now would be a really difficult time, in my opinion, to bring this forward. But I do really want to express that I hope to see this back in October. I think we'll have a season under us to see, was this too restrictive? Was this not restrictive enough? But also, barbecues were something that will come up every year, things like registration. I think there's a more fleshed out conversation that needs to take place after we see what this season looks like. Implementing changes, I think we have already caused mass confusion when it comes to some of this conversation. And I do feel like we need to be able to be as clear as we can this year and then be able to have a really thorough discussion over next fall so that we can choose the direction for next year well in advance. We have many, many months to circulate those changes to within our community and to other communities. So I am hoping this goes forward because that would provide some clarity, but I think we've got some further changes to make very early after the season when it's very fresh, along with parking was the other one that's mentioned. I think we all agree that that's another conversation is warranted there. I actually had something brought up by a resident the other day that I'm not sure was an intended consequence of our parking program. In fact, some of our streets will remain resident-only parking year-round, and there are some businesses on there. So in February, how we've currently approved it, there are some businesses that can't have people that visit their business park outside when there's nobody else on the street. I think we need to have a further conversation, but it'd be really hard to do that right now, in my opinion. So looking forward to that coming back. But we do have an amendment proposed. Is there any other comments on that amendment before we vote? Okay. Seeing none, we're all clear? All those in favor? And opposed? And that is defeated. Council, is there other amendments we'd like to put forward? Seeing none? All right. We've gotten to a place where we're ready to vote on the main motion. This is the original motion with all the many amendments in place, put forward at our last meeting that was tabled by Councillor Mearns. One final call. Is everyone clear on what we are voting on? Great. All those in favor? And opposed? And that is carried unanimously. Well done, team. And many future discussions will be to come. Council, we have reached well over our hour bladder limits, so let's take a 10-minute recess. Thank you. For tonight. Council, I'd like to make the request that we move item number 7B to the end of our business items. We just have a number of items that we didn't get to at our last council meeting, and just in case the traffic safety bylaw is a longer conversation, I want to ensure that we get to that because we've had staff that waited for that at the last meeting, and who knows what might happen. We've got a lot to talk about under the traffic safety bylaw, to my understanding. Any objections to that? Councillor Iwanicki?
Sorry, I don't object. I just want to be clear. So you want to move 7B to the end of the list?
I want to move 7B to, I mean, we've already approved some of those, but I guess 7 after H.
Okay, yeah,
Really.
that's it.
That works. Great. All right, council, let's come together under the Centennial Street Construction Mitigation Task Force. Sorry, Mr. Lebsack. We just really want to stretch out our time with you this evening. It's so fun hanging out with you. Ms. Mercer, welcome.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Good evening. My name is Amanda Mercer, and I'm the Economic Development Officer with the town. I'm here to request Council appoint a member to participate in the Centennial Street Construction Mitigation Task Force. A report was presented to the Governance and Priorities Committee meeting on May 19th last week, at which time Council directed administration to return with a report with a report for Council's consideration regarding appointment of a task force member from Council. Would Council like me to review the presentation we did last week? Okay.
No, but thank you.
Fantastic.
And I appreciate that it's in our package as well.
Excellent. So I'll skip down then to, in support of the project and business community, administration is seeking a council representative to participate in the task force meetings, with all of council being welcome to attend events and broader engagement sessions, of course. The role of the council representative is to participate in the task force meeting and serve as a liaison between council and the task force by sharing high-level information and perspectives, provide updates to council to support awareness and informed decision-making without conveying direction on behalf of council, to respect the administrative role of leading the task force by not directing operational project-related activities. The attached slide deck, as mentioned, provides an overview of the task force, including timelines and participants. Resource impacts. The task force is aligned with our approved operating budget, and there are no additional new budget requests at this time. The project aligns with the economic development strategy pillars. Pillar number 4, engaging the business community for collaborative success, and pillar 5, promoting a vibrant downtown that engages residents and visitors. Communications strategy includes direct outreach to impacted businesses to ensure, and property owners, pardon me, to ensure consistent, accurate messaging throughout the project. Individual initiatives will include tailored engagement approaches aligned with the scope of that work. Regular updates from the project will be included in Council's quarterly reports. Divisions consulted in this report are Public Works, our engineering team, and our strategic initiatives team. Council has several options available to them this evening, including choosing to appoint a member or not, and Council may choose to participate in only broader engagement and celebrations of the task force. Administration respectfully recommends the proposed motion or the proposed resolution that Council appoint a member of Council as the Council representative to the Centennial Street Revitalization Task Force to participate in regular meetings, and further that all members of Council be invited to participate in a broader engagement opportunities and celebrations related to the Centennial Street Revitalization Task Force as presented in AIR 1399.
Excellent. Thank you. We'll start with any questions. And if not questions, I'll just ask that we suspend our regular procedure, and I'd love to know who's interested from Council. Or available. Councillor Mearns, Iwanicki? Oh, go ahead, Councillor
I'm not
Mearns.
interested, but I was going to make a suggestion.
Sure.
But for Mayor Hansen to be a part of that committee, but. Sorry, that's what I was going to do.
Great, I'm hearing my name. We didn't prep that. I absolutely would love to be a part of this. What I would ask, though, is that Councillor Mearns and Councillor Iwanicki, given their ties to the Tourism Development Committee and the Economic Development Committee, be kept in close of a loop as possible. Happy to take the lead on this for council unless anyone's looking to jump in. But I do think that there's a tie between those other committees, and ensuring that you're both invited whenever possible and kept in the loop is really important. Any concerns? Great. Councillor Mearns, would you like to make a motion?
I will make a motion that council appoint Mayor Hansen as the council representative to the Centennial Street Revitalization Task Force to participate in regular meetings, and further that all members of council be invited to participate in broader engagement opportunities and celebrations related to the Centennial Street Revitalization Task Force as presented in AIR 1399.
Sure. I do want to ask the question, should we designate a council alternate?
Sure, yeah. If someone is not available, it would be handy to have someone there at each of those important engagements.
That would be great. Councillor Iwanicki.
I could be an alternate. My schedule is very flexible, so long as it's not like day before notice or anything.
I'll try not to get sick. Councillor Mearns, you have a thought?
And appoint Councillor Iwanicki as the alternative to this committee.
Excellent. Councillor Oostende, did you have a comment there? Great. We have a motion on the floor. Is everybody clear? All those in favor? And opposed? And that is carried unanimously. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Next, we'll move along to CP 2602 Herder Drive Rehabilitation Phase 4, the long-awaited project. Welcome, Mr. Boudreau.
Hello, Mayor and Council. Thank you for having me this evening. I would like to present my report to Council to award the tender for the construction and rehabilitation of Phase 4 of Herder Drive. Phase 4 is the final stage of this rehabilitation for this important collector road. It goes from about Harrison Drive all the way south to 47th Ave. Over the winter season, we did a look at the existing stormwater infrastructure, and thankfully we determined that it was actually in better shape than the rest of Herder Drive. And so while I'm sure you're familiar, we had to replace the entirety of the storm infrastructure. Up to this point, the existing length that remains will be staying in place, which will create a much more efficient process for us going forward. Upon closing of the tender submissions, we received 3 that met all of our criteria. And of those 3, Border Paving out of Red Deer had a submission that met all of our necessities. Our budget impacts, we currently have $1 million available to complete this project, and with Border Paving submission of $517,110.90 falls well within the budget available. We presented a few options for Council to consider, with the administration respectfully recommending that Council award the tender for construction for Herder Drive Phase 4 to Border Paving for the $517,110.90. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Boudreau. Council, do we have any questions? Councillor Oostende.
Regarding the final lift or the final asphalt, that would be done 1 year later in 2027, I'm assuming. Is that included in this bid then? Call it the Phase 4. Is that to complete final asphalt layers?
Through the chair to Councillor Oostende, this year, with the lack of necessity to do any real underground work, it'll just be probably catch basins we anticipate that we'll be doing. We hope to do both lists this year. Okay. We'll see how the year proceeds and how things look as we are going through the project, but we're hoping to be able to do everything this year, knock on wood.
One other communication thought I had is sometimes you see people commenting, what's wrong with the town? They don't know how to pave the road, you know, that's dragged out forever. And really, the professionals know how to do it. They're waiting the year for it to settle before they waste money and, you know, and put that second layer on. I think that should be a a piece that we can add to our communications in future. And just so that people know, it's not just hanging out. We didn't stop because it was Halloween. You know, we actually stopped on purpose, and that's what pavers do. And so I thought something important.
Well, we have communications in the room. Oh, no, we don't. Well, it's recorded. Yes, we do. I'll just say, I think that is a great communication point to add to our annual plan, because every year we have that same conversation. How dare you have left the road like we left it? And we know that that's intentional, especially when there's quite a bit of work done to the base of the road. So I appreciate that that's just a reoccurring annual conversation that we're having with residents.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, yeah, and I'll just say we do try to communicate that out, but we'll certainly make a better effort to make sure it's more clear as to why we're doing what we're doing. Thank you.
And I'll just note, I think you do a really great job on the project page often about that. It's just a general tidbit that might need to go far and wide in other places, that this is how construction successfully takes place. Because people that aren't affected necessarily by the neighborhood, I don't know that look too close into the details of the project. Do we have additional questions? Councillor Bilodeau.
Just curious if you can give us a estimated timeline, when it'll start, when it'll be done, so we know when Herder Drive can finally start to celebrate after 7 years of construction?
Yes, through the chair to Councillor Bilodeau, a great question. Yeah, we're very sensitive to the timelines of this project, especially since there's a school right next door. So our intention is to complete this work during the months of July and August. So we keep the road open for the school season till right up to the end, and then hopefully open it back up before the school season begins is our intention.
Thank you. Seeing no additional questions, would someone like to put a motion on the floor? Councillor Payne.
I move the council award the contract for the Herder Drive Rehabilitation Phase 4 CP 2602 to Border Paving Limited for $517,110.90, excluding contingency and GST, as presented in AIR 1403.
Excellent. Any debate, council? Great. A motion on the floor. All those in favor? And opposed? And that is carried unanimously. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Boudreau. Next, we'll move along to the Subdivision and Development Appeal Board Services Bylaw. Ms. Devlin?
Thank you, Worship. This is for council to consider granting first, second, and third reading to Bylaw 1955-2026, which is the Subdivision and Development Appeal Board Services Bylaw. So this bylaw will replace Bylaw 1906-2024, which is the Regional Intermunicipal Subdivision and Development Appeal Board bylaw. This new bylaw authorizes the town to utilize SDAB services provided by Red Deer County, outlines the general process for submitting an appeal, and establishes the appeal fee. Administration is recommending that the current appeal fee of $150 be increased to $250 to be consistent with our other appeal fees in town. This appeal fee has been the same for the last 20 years. The bylaw also includes a provision for refunding the fee when the appellant has been successful in their appeal, so they aren't penalized for that if they are successful. Administration respectfully recommends that council grant first, second, and third reading to Bylaw 1955-2026, given the urgency for the town to ensure a Subdivision and Development Appeal Board is in place in the event the town receives an appeal.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Do we have any questions to start? Someone like to put forward a motion? Councillor Payne.
I move that council grant first reading to bylaw 1955-2026 be in the Subdivision and Development Appeal Board Services bylaw as requested in AIR 1408.
Great. Any conversation? We have a motion on the floor. All those in favor? And opposed? That is carried unanimously. Councillor Stindy, I saw your hand last time. Would you like to put forward second reading?
I move that council grant second reading to bylaw 1955-2026, being the Subdivision and Development Appeal Board Services bylaw, as requested in AIR 1408.
Excellent. Additional conversation? Great. All those in favor? And opposed? That is carried. Council, I would like to make this next motion because I'd like to remove a word. That council grant consent to proceed to third reading to bylaw 1955-2026, being the SDAB Board Services Bylaw as requested in AIR 1408. It just seems odd to me to say it's unanimous. It's really the vote that tells us that, so I've removed that word. Any concerns with that, Council? We understand that this is very out of our regular procedure, but we are exposed right now without this being in place. So that motion is on the floor. All those in favor? And opposed? And that was carried unanimously. So would someone be interested in putting forward third reading? Councillor Bilodeau.
That council grant third reading to bylaw 1955-2026, being the Subdivision and Development Appeal Board Services Bylaw as requested in ARI 1408.
Excellent. Final opportunity, just in case anyone's got some additional thoughts in the last, since the last couple of readings. Seeing none, all those in favor and opposed, and that is carried again unanimously. Thank you, Council. Great. We can move back to the traffic safety bylaw. Mr. Lebsack, welcome back.
Thank you, Your Worship and Council. I didn't even have time to get organized there. That was such a short break.
Sorry about that.
So as you can see here, we are bringing back second reading of the proposed traffic safety bylaw 1952-2026. And again, this, there's a couple, as we mentioned in here before, a couple of wording clarification things in here, but essentially it is the clarified identification and regulations for personal transportation modes, such as bicycles, e-bikes, e-scooters, and power-assisted vehicles. We have, administration has researched and discussed 3 options regarding the personal transportation modes for council's consideration, and we're just throwing these out there kind of to start the conversation, and then thought it would carry on from there. So again, consideration 1 would be to follow the Provincial Traffic Safety Act and regulations, and by following that, it would the transportation modes would be restricted to bicycles, electric power-assisted bicycles, skateboards, longboards, and rollerblades. E-scooters would be prohibited unless a provincial commercial exemption has been obtained, such as what Neuron has. And municipal enforcement does not recommend this option, as privately owned e-scooters, which are becoming very popular these days, would not be permitted, and it is extremely hard to ticket, confiscate a resident with a private e-scooter when a company is allowed to operate a business and charge users for the exact same thing. Option 2, consideration 2, Provincial Traffic Safety Act and regulations plus private e-scooters. So again, now we get into that by also including privately owned e-scooters into the town's traffic safety bylaw. It would expand the allowable modes of transportation and remove the confusion and discrepancy between privately owned and corporate owned e-scooters. And then section 3 would be to allow electric assisted motorcycles, which again are ones that we're seeing much more often on the roads these days. These small motorcycles that are identified as a vehicle under the Traffic Safety Act, however, are not permitted on a roadway, highway, or sidewalk and cannot be registered as a motor vehicle. Again, we do not support this option. And in addition, most of these electric assisted motorcycles reach speeds of 60 kilometers an hour or more. So again, I think you've seen what the considerations we've provided there. In addition to the above discussed considerations for personal transportation modes, the proposed traffic safety bylaw also proposes adding definitions for bicycle, e-scooter, and prohibited miniature vehicle. Those will of course come straight from the Traffic Safety Act. We didn't make up any of the wording ourselves. Some cleanup and wording of terminology in the controlled parking spaces section, the inclusion of e-scooters into permitted personal transportation modes you'll see in there, the clearly defined prohibiting of miniature vehicles, and a review of Schedule A specified penalties. Again, we reviewed specified penalties or our fine schedule to comparable communities and neighboring Red Deer, and overall we were slightly above average for our penalties. The only thing we would note there, if you're interested in having the discussion about penalties, is that very few municipalities we compared to provide an early payment option. So as you notice, we have the regular payment, then we have an early payment option, and within, I think it's 10 days or 14 days, or it reverts to the regular payment option. A lot of communities do not have that early payment option. And with that, Council, I believe I will pass that over to you for discussion.
Thank you. Council, just in terms of protocol, we'll have the opportunity to ask questions, and then I'll ask if we follow the same on our last heavy discussion item. If you can contain all of your comments within your 5 minutes, we'll do a round for anyone who wishes to speak. And then if there are amendments, we can propose those afterwards with very little discussion on the amendments, because we're trying to capture that within our first round of speaking. So we'll start with, are there any questions? Councillor Iwaniki.
What are the options available to us? I'm not saying I support this, I'm just asking, of getting rid of the rental e-scooters in their entirety? Like, what could we do to ban those and then just not allow e-scooters at all?
Your Worship, from a legal perspective, in terms of this bylaw, we would simply just not include the electric e-scooters in the bylaw, so we would follow consideration number 1, which is the Provincial Traffic Safety Act regulations, and that would ban all e-scooters, both private and commercial. The other portion of that, which I was not involved with and can't speak too much to, would be that the town, the municipality would write a letter to the province to say that we do not approve of a commercially licensed e-scooter company, and then they would revoke that license because the license comes from the province of Alberta.
Additional questions? Councillor Stindy.
I want to understand clearly, although my leaning is to reject it already, the option in number 3 refers to electric assisted motorcycles. Does the word assisted have to be there? Are we really just talking about an electric motorcycle?
So through the chair, yes, the word electric assisted needs to be there. We could include electric and electric assisted, if that clarifies a little bit more. But there are now motorbikes out there that you can order online, get them shipped in from somewhere around the world, that also have pedals on them, but they will go 60 to 80 kilometers an hour.
Okay, so that clarifies a bit, because a moped is, has pedals and it doesn't go up to that speed, or shouldn't anyway. All right. The other question I have is, if e-scooters, private e-scooters are banned by the province, have no regulation, maybe you can clarify that for me, because we've had this conversation before. How do we allow them by our own bylaw? It sounds like a contradiction.
So again, through the chair, so the province does allow us that if they don't meet their Provincial Traffic Safety Act, then the municipality can pass a bylaw allowing those within their municipality.
Okay, thank you.
Additional questions of clarification? Great. Would someone like to put a motion on the floor? Councillor Mearns.
I'll make a motion that council approves second reading on the traffic safety bylaw 1952-2026 as presented in report AIR 1404.
Excellent. Thank you. And we'll open it up for a round of discussion. Councillor Mearns and then Payne.
So I support, I guess, option number 2. The only thing that I don't see included in there, and I don't know if it's meant to or if it's covered somewhere, but I did see it in the definitions on page, let me find it, I think it's 38 of our But I would want to include in option number 2, motorized skateboards, and for lack of a better term, electric unicycles, single-wheel electric devices. So I would like to see those added in to option number 2.
And we'll go to Mr. Lebsack. Sure.
Sorry, just for clarification, through the chair. So you would like those added in as permitted?
Correct.
Councillor Bean.
So Mr. Lebsack, there are electric power-assisted bicycles, and then there are e-bikes. Can you tell me the difference between the two?
So through the chair, they're very hard to disseminate when you're looking at them. However, the e-bike is only power assisted with the pedals, and then you have to pedal first. The electric bicycles and electric motorbikes, which is what we're referring to, really the pedals are just there for show and almost as footrests, and they go much faster. So the differentiation from an enforcement standpoint would be, unless they look totally different like a little dirt bike, from an enforcement standpoint, we would be looking at the speed.
Okay. How do we get them off our trails? Now, that's a big question, but it's one that's come up. My neighbor, I was telling some people in council, my neighbor was struck by one walking on our trail, on the CP trail. Coming around a corner, the bike came so quickly that before he had a chance to move, he and his wife were hit. He was hit. These things, like I've seen them go 37 kilometers an hour. These things don't belong on trails where people are walking. How do we stop that? How do we curb that in this bylaw?
Through the chair, again, I'm not sure that anything specifically written into the bylaw other than outright banning anything electrically assisted would do that. I think the idea would be more education, more enforcement would be how we have certain, make sure that I get my terminology right here, electric power assisted bicycles out there, but not the electric bikes.
Councillor Mearns, and then I'll jump in maybe.
I'm no expert, but maybe to help you with this, Councillor Payne, and I hope I get them correct. E-assist means you have to be pedaling for it to move, whereas straight electric, you don't need to pedal. You can press a button, twist a throttle, and you go, regardless of pedals.
So is there a way to get electric bikes then off walking trails? Like maybe I understand it a little differently, but a good friend of mine, Kim Rosie, rides an electric bike. That is, she pedals it, and when she's going uphill, it helps her get up the hill. And I don't have an issue with that. I have a massive issue with these things that go 30, 40 kilometers an hour on a walking trail, and I think that may very well be the electric bikes. So is there a definition in here that allows us to get these electric bicycles off of sidewalks? Does that exist here?
Through the chair, I believe that is what we're recommending through this bylaw. To be clear, the difference between the bylaw prohibits them and the fact that some people are going to do it anyway, I thought is what you were asking me. So this bylaw, as it's written right now, prohibits electric bicycles on trails anywhere within town. They're only allowed on private property, which is not going to be somewhere in town. And so that's how we would do that within this bylaw, is they are prohibited within this bylaw.
Thank you.
Sorry, Ron, where is that? Is that at T?
So through the chair, yes, correct. So T is the addition, we added the additional definition in there as a prohibited miniature vehicle. And so yes, that, again, I'd have to scroll through the exact portion, sections of the bylaw, but that's how we've added that in there as a prohibited miniature vehicle, yes. And that definition comes out of the province's Traffic Safety Act and their regulations.
So an electronic bicycle fits in this definition in T, just to be clear.
An electric bicycle does, yes.
Okay, excellent, thank you.
If I could jump in next. Councillor Payne, you've perfectly proved one of my points, but we'll get there. One, I do believe that the definition section needs to be expanded. There's no definition of a regular scooter. It just talks about e-scooters. In item number 71, it gives more of a description of all the things we're talking about, but I don't see that very clearly in the definition section. My goal is to remove anything that is powered by a motor, e-scooter, and these electronic bikes, not the assisted ones, from any sidewalk in town. I'll say I could be convinced that pathways are also not the choice, but they are at least wider. I really don't want to also be run down by an e-scooter on the sidewalk, and I see that happening just so regularly. Sidewalks are for slow, passive traffic in my mind. For walking, we've got it clearly outlined, for children with training wheels, those kinds of situations. It's not for anything faster than that, and I'd like to see that clear. But overall, my challenge with this section, starting the bicycles, skateboards, longboards, scooters, and rollerblades, this entire section, I would love to see it rewritten in incredibly plain language speak. I had to read this a number of times, and I actually went upstairs, and 3 of our staff were in their office, and I said, can you read this one more time to see if I'm reading the same thing that you're reading? And it took 3 very bright minds, a couple of read-throughs to really understand what we're proposing here, and we want anyone to be able to look at this bylaw and in just plain language say, you can ride your bicycle or scooter on the sidewalk unless there's a sign that says you can't. You can, like that type of plain language, and I'd love to see us get there. I see why there's confusion when I see, and when Councillor Payne can't easily find those types of items, I think there's gotta be a way we can be clearer. I also think item number 69 and 70 are a repetition of 71, and it does make it unclear because you're just stating the same thing twice with different words. Let me see if there's anything else. Yes, my goal would be to move those type of electronic vehicles off of our sidewalks and open to the discussion on pathways. I also just want to bring attention to under number 15 in here. There's one other little bit of language that does not make sense to me. It says, notwithstanding section 14, non-residents of the town may park a recreational vehicle, and it goes on to there, and I'm unclear why that only applies to non-residents of the town. So that's an off-brand. Everything else is within that same section. And
Sorry, Your Worship, can I
Yes.
was kind of following along until that last one.
yeah, it really took you off course there.
Yeah. What section was that?
It is number 14, or sorry, 15, under recreation vehicles. The third word is non-residents. And I'm not sure why that just wouldn't apply to anyone. Page 40 of our agenda.
So for clarification, Your Worship, I remember the previous discussion on this one. So that is so that a visitor to town can come, park their recreational vehicle in front of your house for a day or two, stay in there while they're visiting, and then leave. The concern in the previous was that a resident that owned the house would park their recreational vehicle in front of their house for the entire summer with a cord across the sidewalk for power, kind of an idea, and their kids might stay in it, or they're something else. That's where the original conversation came from years ago when we redid this, because it's only, I think it was 3 years ago that we redid this, so just for clarification.
Okay. Thank you. Additional comments, Councillor Johannesson.
Yeah, I'm just, and maybe I missed it, there's a lot going on here. Where are we at with actually on Lakeshore on the sidewalk for these types of vehicles? Because that is one of the major concerns I hear are those scooters and e-bikes and et cetera going down that pathway. And I would like to be able to talk about just having a complete ban on that area, especially with the amount of traffic we get. And the reality is a lot of people are pretty irresponsible there. I didn't see it in here, but I don't know if I would need to make an amendment for that, but where we can, 67, where is that, page 67? Item 67. Page is that on? 73, okay. So what's it at currently?
Page 47 is the...
46.
46.
The proposed. That's the existing lighting sidewalk.
And that's the one that we already have in place? So they were just doing it illegally then?
But
Okay.
this is not a vehicle. Yeah, that's where I'm suggesting those amendments come in within that next section.
What's not a vehicle?
E-bikes and scooters are not classified, they're not defined as a vehicle, so I don't think that section you're referring to, Councillor Payne, applies to the.
Doesn't it define it as?
Mr. Levesque.
So for clarification, yes, they are. So if it's an electric motorcycle, then it would be classified as a vehicle. But all of these new electric e-bikes, the e-scooters, those are, you're correct, under the next section, which is bicycles, skateboards, longboards, scooters, rollerblades. So if you have a true electric, we call them electric dirt bikes because that's what 90% of them look like, they're classified as a vehicle. All these other new these electric bikes that come in are falling under the next section, which is the bicycles. So they are not currently prohibited unless there's signage, which there is not.
So I would say to maybe make this simpler, if we could add kind of the wording of, and someone else could jump in and maybe do this better, but instead of saying what's not allowed, we say what is allowed, and only manually powered vehicles or forms of transportation are allowed on Lakeshore. So that would be bikes, rollerblades, etc. I don't know if that.
I'll just say, my wish would be on any sidewalk.
On any, of
not
course,
just-
yeah, for sure, on the sidewalk. So manually powered. Maybe that's a better way to simplify it.
It's already there in 71. No person shall operate a bicycle, e-scooter, skateboard, longboard, scooter, or rollerblades on a sidewalk, pathway system, or area on which the operation of the same is prohibited by signage, where signage prohibits the operation of a bicycle. It also prohibits skateboards, longboards, scooters, and rollerblades.
But we don't have signage, so that doesn't apply. And I don't personally want to see a sign on every single sidewalk in town. The sign pollution that would, certainly at key points, that would be important, but I do think we could achieve that outcome if it's something that we're interested in talking about in a different way. Every residential street in Fox Run and Hewlett Park probably doesn't need a sign on it every 50 feet. Sure, Councillor Bilodeau and then Mearns.
Okay, so I just have a question. So you would like to not see e-scooters or e-bikes on a sidewalk? So that means they're on the road. You want to see e-scooters on the road?
Yeah, I don't love them on the roads either, I'll be honest, but I really don't think they have a place on a sidewalk.
Could we narrow that down to specific sidewalks? Because I do understand, and I'm just trying to understand. I have an e-bike, so I'll say that. So I like to go, and I'm a resident, and I'm not going to sit on the beach, but I do like to ride my e-bike along the beach. I may have to swerve around people. I use my bell, and that's how I get through. I can understand riding on the road to get to the lake. It's kind of dicey. I think it's difficult for a huge ban, but we could ban an area, and I feel like the biggest area concern is Lakeshore. And and it's because of the overuse of the e-scooters. Like, could we take away one of the components to make it not so busy and just say, Neuron, you can't do Lakeshore? And then the people that live in town can use their scooters, and we can use our bikes, or designate one single path. We have two paths. We have the upper path and we have the lower path. So if you're walking your dog, not sure which path you're allowed to be on, because I know there's supposed to be a restriction. That one is where people are walking and so on, and the other one could be where the scooters and bikes can be. We could do that. You know, and in other communities, they put a white line down the sidewalk so you're staying on the right and the left, makes everything easier. But I just don't, I understand the reasoning. I think probably the worst area of town is Lakeshore for congestion, and that's probably the one that we need to address. I think if we can get away with prohibiting certain things or moving the kinds of traffic we have down there, that's great. I'm just worried because I think a lot of the youth use those e-scooters, and I'd hate to see them on the roads. Yeah, I don't, it is confusing.
Councillor Mearns and then Ostindi.
Yeah, similar to Councillor Bilodeau, I would support the, let's call it the upper sidewalk, concrete sidewalk on Lakeshore, banned to all modes except walking, like bicycles, whether they're whether they're scooters, and then the path that's on, that goes, you know, the lower paved asphalt path, e-bikes, scooters, things like that. But the upper path, I would support a ban on anything except walking.
Councillor Bilodeau.
What is your rationale for the upper versus the lower? Because I would have actually thought the opposite, because the upper is, it's not as close to the lake. So I would think people would want to be walking more quietly and so on down at the lake. And you should have up near the road is where you should have, I'm just asking what your rationale is.
I think the delineation there is if we say sidewalk, it's fairly straightforward.
Okay.
I do spend a lot of, versus path, so I spend a lot of time down there. And for me, I don't want to be up on the sidewalk. There's too many people. So I'm down on the path, and there's that luxury of, you know, it's not as congested down there. There are people walking on it, but it's usually people on either side of it that are sitting there or enjoying it. So I guess that's my reasoning, right, wrong, or otherwise.
Councillor Ostindi and then Johannesson.
I was thinking we're not necessarily separating in our mind sidewalks and trails, because in our Lakeshore we have trails as well as sidewalks. And when I alluded to the comment earlier about reviewing scooters, one of the things we can do, of course, is we could ban, but the other thing is with the commercial ones, we can greatly restrict their speed. So when you ride a scooter in e-scooter in Red Deer's Riverbend, it drops you right down to 6 kilometers an hour. It's barely, you know, more than a walking speed. So we can do a lot of other things aside from banning. And it's the problem with our trail on Lakefront is it's busy those 20-something days a year, and the rest of the time it's not bad. It's just a straight line, clear visibility, and biking on it probably wouldn't be a bad thing on that trail. But because of its use and our growth as a community, it's a little bit of a narrow trail. It meets the standard of all of our other trails, but it really should be wider. It's not really wide enough for its busy times. So that's where I think we got to be cautious about what we're banning or what we're restricting or slowing down, and making that fit across other parts that are a little grayer.
I have a quick thought, and then we have a request for a recess before we jump into the next two. I guess what I wonder is, I feel like there's still a lot of discussion that needs to be had here, and this did originally come to a GP meeting, but obviously we're not there. We didn't have this kind of discussion. We just got an overview of the bylaw. I'm wondering if the move is to go forward with second reading tonight, and then have this come back to a GP meeting with some specific options before third reading. And we can ask those really targeted questions of council, this versus this, here versus this, and see some options to get us to a place, because I never want to be wordsmithing at a council meeting to this degree. And I don't know that we have the same urgency as we do with some of our lakefront. So maybe I'll just ask for some quick comments on that. Thoughts around Councillor Payne, Johansson, although if you could just comment on that process side of it, yeah.
I was just gonna say 10 seconds. I would be more in favor of like just having walking everywhere on both sidewalks. But to Councillor Murren's point, I would actually be in favor of the upper one, and mostly because that's where all the benches are. And a lot of people sit there, right? And that's what I've seen problems with e-scooters, is people are sitting on the bench and people like try to swerve around people and they almost hit people that are sitting on the benches. So if we were gonna do sidewalk to sidewalk, I would be in favor of walking only on the upper one where the benches are, and then allowing it on the bottom for that.
So if I can just ask that question on protocol, how do we feel about potentially going forward with a second reading, but then having some options and some discussion on this to really dive in at a GP meeting? Councillor Payne.
I'm still stuck on clarity. I'm still,
Yes.
like, I still have questions about definitions and questions about things, so I'm not comfortable at all, because I feel like there's too much that I don't know. And I actually consider myself fairly intelligent.
Me too. And we also could just table second reading at this point and then ask for that time in a GP meeting. Just because I'm aware this isn't the place to, now I'm hearing a lot of agreeance around, we have some concerns, but just how to get there in those specifics, that might be the best way to go about it. Councillor Iwanicki, and then I'm gonna defer to you, Mr. Lebsack, to see if there's some operational concerns with that suggestion.
Okay, if I was expressing a preference, my preference would be to get second reading out of the way, go back to a GP meeting to just get that clarity, because if all we're really quibbling over is definitions, we're not really arguing too much over substance. But if we are gonna start talking, where are we doing bans, where are we not, that's starting to get a lot more involved, and I think maybe we should keep second reading on the table. Regardless of any of that, you look confused.
Well, for me, the definition leads to process. Like, that's the problem I'm having, is I would feel very comfortable if I understood. I have two questions, but yeah. But it's all process. It depends on what the clarity of the definition is. Because if the clarity of the definition works, then 79 works to solve my problem.
And then, sorry, I went out of order. I took your job for a second. The one thing, regardless of whether we do second reading or not, or GP meeting or not, I would like a little bit more clarity on what, if any, the agreement with Neuron is. I'd like to see what the town gets from that arrangement. Just because I could see myself being swayed towards saying adios to all this stuff. Just because I don't think we're ever gonna be able to figure out a system that makes a lot of sense. And those Neuron scooters are, in the summertime, those are just an absolute disaster. I appreciate that they're helpful, but God, they're a pain in the butt on the lakefront, anyway. And if we end up banning them on the lakefront, Neuron's gonna go away anyway, because I don't think they're gonna see much utility in keeping their product here. Anyway.
Mr. Lebsack or Ms. Devlin, do you have any procedural advice to us on?
Your worship, I might recommend actually tabling second reading. If council has a lot of back and forth about where they want to see them or not see them, it may be a lot of amendments prior to giving just third reading. So unless Mr. Lebsack has any concern with that, no, I see a head nod. I will also add to Councillor Iwanicki's point that we also have been cognizant of, depending on where council wanted to go with this discussion, or banning them in certain areas or on sidewalks, we were going to bring up that we should probably get the information from the agreement with Neuron to bring that back to council too. So if it's council's wish to come back to a GP meeting, we will do that. We will have that agreement information handy as well to provide that to council as well.
I think that's great. I'll also add, I'm always really conscious, I don't think we ever should be dealing with, you guys have heard this, dealing with summer things in summertime. And if we were to make a change and finalize this midway through August, I think that would be really confusing. We want to have some communication time here. So I think doing it right and giving ourselves at least a couple weeks to communicate wherever we go to is a wise choice, because at least I'd like to see some changes on this. Council, do we have any concern with tabling this? No. Okay. Would someone like to make a motion formally to table? Councillor Payne?
I move to table the discussion on the, what bylaw is this?
Traffic safety.
The traffic safety bylaw, 1952-2026. Are we going to wait for a GP meeting?
Yes, I'm going to suggest it's probably too late to be on next week's. So realistically, it would end up on the June 16th GP meeting. So ask to table it till June 23rd.
June 23rd, till June 23rd.
Great. We have that motion on the floor. All those in favor? Oh, sorry, we're not ready to vote. Mr. Lebsack. So sorry.
Sorry, Your Worship, I was just kind of checking eyes over there. If we have room on next week's GP meeting, we could get it on right away, because essentially we're going to present what's here. We'll bring some additional information such as Neuron. I will bring some additional information which isn't hard in terms of feedback from legal. That's the only one thing that's going through my mind right now is, I know I made a comment here, we want it more clear language, more positive, but that's always frowned upon from legal because it's hard to enforce. So our bylaws, if you've noticed, always seem to be written in the negative, because that's how you enforce them and that's how they stand up in court. So I can bring more information like that back next week too as well, if you wish.
I'd suggest we keep that further date in the hopes, I'd love to see it back next week, but it at least gives you a buffer. And from my wish, I also hope we can have a real clear list of questions on some of the things, pathways, sidewalks, so that council can give some kind of speed round yes or no feedback on various items, so that we can get to a place where, so I'd love to see it next week. But I also don't mind setting that date for the June 23rd, just to ensure that you've got time if you need to get some additional feedback. Councillor Iwaniki?
Maybe saying one earlier available date if.
Sure, yeah, that sounds great.
Sounds good.
Councillor Payne? I'll add in, or earlier.
Yeah.
Great, we have a motion on the floor by Councillor Payne. All those in favor and opposed, and that is carried. We have a request for a recess, so let's just take 3 minutes here. we can come back in under correspondence and information items. We've got a letter attached for information. Actually, a couple things for information. Any questions on those? Seeing none, move along to the CAO report.
Thank you, Your Worship. In the sake of time, I won't highlight anything specific in the report tonight, but if council has any questions, I'm happy to try to answer those for you.
Excellent. Council, do we have any of those questions? Seeing none, well, thank you for that. Council request for information updates. Do we have any items to note in there? Councilor Bilodeau.
I have a request from Mr. Lebsack to bring us information on the updates with the washrooms. So previously, I don't know, a couple months back, we had a discussion about expanding the bathrooms at Centennial Park, and I don't know where we're at. And maybe a quick update about all the stuff that was done with the other bathrooms, if you don't mind. Thank you.
Through the chair, Councillor Bilodeau, I'm just going to clarify. So you're wanting a update on our project down in Centennial Park to redo the sanitary and water to those existing 2 small washrooms next to the playground, and then see whether we're adding more. Is that correct?
So my recollection of the last time that we talked about the Centennial bathrooms was that we identified we needed to expand the number, because there's 2. And then we talked about different options that we could have, whether it was a brick building, whether you could add portables and so on. And that's the last thing I remember, other than the concern for having to do some groundwork in order to accommodate. I just simply want to know, like, I'm guessing that we're not doing anything this summer, because I actually just, I have no idea where we're at, and that's kind of what I'm asking,
Okay, sure. So through the chair. So the quick update on that project would be that, so we've gone out, we've got pricing on doing the underground work, which in order for those washrooms to be open year-round, we have to redo the water and the sanitary on them. That project came in at roughly $325,000 and could not be done within the time frame of before the park started to get busy. So it is scheduled for this fall, with the remaining, what was that, $175,000 I think that was left in the budget. We're now trying to figure out how we can add in additional capacity to those washrooms. So the 2 that are there that are existing are pre-made, brought in, dropped in place washrooms, which we cannot add on to. So we're trying to decide now what we can fit in within that remaining budget to add additional washroom space. And we should have an answer for that probably within the next 2 or 3 weeks as to, are we going to be able to do anything for that amount of money, or are we going to have to come back and provide council with a few other options? So again, the sanitary and water upgrades, I want to say, are roughly $325,000, and that's what's driving the project for adding additional washrooms there, because without the sanitary and water upgrades, those washrooms will never be open during the wintertime. So that's kind of where the status is there. And again, we don't have an answer yet as to what we can add for additional capacity, because we know that's what council is looking for.
And the washrooms that were renovated, is that all complete? The 2 big washrooms right on Lakeshore, they were renovated?
Correct. Those were, what we did is we added a kind of a storage / staff room in there into each one of them on the men's side. So they are complete. We now have storage facilities down in each one, so we're not going off of Lakeshore back to the mob to pick up supplies. And also our seasonal staff report directly there in the morning. So they report directly down to the lakefront in the morning and work right out of there, yes.
Okay, good, thank you.
I do have a quick one around the lighthouse. I've been seeing on social media that it's been turned off overnight in recent times, and I'm curious what brought that about.
Your Worship, I am curious as well. I have not heard that. We did have a power failure there at one point in time, but I believe that was only like a day and a half, 2 days, like maybe one evening or 2 evenings. So I don't know anything beyond that, but I will certainly look into it and get back to you.
That'd be great. A follow-up on that one by email would be great.
You bet.
Councillor Iwaniki.
When it comes to just a question, when it comes to the parking app, what data do we get from that? I'm just thinking for the future, like do you know how many unique hits we get on a given period of time?
Through the chair, I would suggest we get lots of data in terms of, yes, how often it's opened, how often it's looked at. We get all of our, obviously, financial data. We get all of our license plate data. What we do not get is, which we've hoped for, but really is no opportunity for it, is residential data in terms of where a person is from. So are they from Edmonton, Calgary, Red Deer, Saskatoon, wherever? We don't have those numbers. So we might have 12 from Saskatchewan, but we have no idea where in Saskatchewan they're from, unless they've actually created an account within Hotspot, then we would have that data. But otherwise, if you just come, scan your QR code, do your thing, there's no data that goes along with that.
Okay, well, I mean, it's a little bit narrower than I was hoping, but nonetheless, I'm just thinking for the fall when we're reassessing the parking rate, are we going to be able to see, like we'll see absolute dollar figure terms, which is helpful. But I'd also like to see whenever it comes back, if we can see if we're getting more traffic, like more people actually purchasing passes, or if it's gone down, or.
Sorry, yes, so absolutely. We call those parking sessions in the app, and we have all the data on every session in each zone, literally by the day, by the hour, by the week, all those kinds of things, yes.
Awesome, thank you.
All right, council, prior to 7 o'clock, we'll need a motion to extend. Is anyone interested? Councillor, that was really a tie, one by voice, one by hand. So Councillor Oostende, you've had a few tonight.
I move that we extend the council meeting past 7 p.m.
Great. All those in favor and opposed, and that is carried. Great, we'll move along to our notice of motion. Councillor Iwaniki. Councillor Murray. Sorry.
Just a quick question, and Councillor Iwaniki may be on this already. Just wondering if there's a possibility to separate out item 4 in his motion from the others.
Yeah, and I was going to suggest that anyway, to basically carve the proposed motion into 2 separate motions. So the one, paragraph 4 would be just on the financial side of things, which I think is not, I would hope is not enormously contentious, whereas the points 1 through 3, I could see there being conflicts with people's sort of moral thoughts on the issue. And then that way, someone doesn't feel like they have to vote one way or another because of that, right? If that makes sense.
That sounds great. I'll allow you to introduce your motion, and then feel free to put it on the floor in that divided manner.
Sure, yeah. So I'll start with the narrow issue then. So my motion would be that be it resolved that the town of Sylvan Lake calls on the government of Alberta to ensure that any operational requirements imposed on public libraries are accompanied by dedicated provincial funding. And this would be in relation to Bill 28. And then this will have to be in both, but that directs administration to send a copy of this resolution to the Minister of Municipal Affairs, the Premier, the local MLA, Alberta municipalities, and the rural municipalities of Alberta.
Council, do we want to have any discussion on that financial side of it? Yes.
I just want to point out, as someone who sits on the Parkland Board, the Library Board, and Parkland Executive, I know I say this politely, people can get a little bit doom and gloom about these sort of things, but they are tossing around some rather apocalyptic scenarios for the financial implications of this. And what I don't want to end up seeing is something put in place that we have no consultation over that increases our budgetary requirements for this, for implementing Bill 28. I think if the province is going to do that, they should pay for it at the end of the day. And that's, I mean, I don't think that should be enormously contentious, right? If the province makes our job more difficult to do, then I don't think it should be on the Sylvan Lake taxpayers to foot that bill.
Councillor Iwanicki, have you had any, have they thrown out any numbers about what potentially the cost of these changes? I know a lot of them are not as defined as they could be, but just curious if there's been any that have floated.
Parkland's the big one. Parkland's the one where it really is going to depend on the regulations, because if the regulations start digging very heavily into especially the online access, the software and everything that they use now isn't set up for it, and they're going to have to rebid out a whole bunch of software, and they're talking about a 20-30% increase to their budget as a result. Now that's, again, dependent on regulations that we don't even know whether they're going to exist or not. So it's so much speculation. I really caution everyone, don't hang their hat on that in any way, shape, or form, because it's useless. Speculation is not very valuable, because the regulations could come in a lot narrower than that, in which case the budgetary requirements might be nil or nominal at the end of the day. And then the Sylvan Lake Library, the budgetary restrictions really is going to be on staff time is the biggest one. That's their concern, is how much staff time is going to have to be involved in that, because it'll be a lot of overtime. That'll be, you know, incurred probably over the course of 1 year, realistically. So that'd be a 1 year spike in the budget, and then it would flatline, or not flatline, go back to normal the year following. But there could be situations where there might have to be some adjustments to the way the cataloging is handled, which could increase their budget, but it's not going to be nearly as large.
Okay. Thank you. Any additional comment, Councillor Payne?
Whether you agree or disagree with what the changes that Bill 28 puts in place for libraries, it's still going to cost the municipality. And as has been the habit for the last several years, the expectation is that we will do more with less. So this is really just asking, if you want us to implement the changes you want to implement, help us pay for it, because it is going to cost. Especially the cataloging, it's going to cost.
Thank you very much. Councillor Ostindi.
Yeah, just as a general notion, when different aspects of public service are changed and have a higher requirement based on them, we should always be asking the question, where does that money come from to do that work? And it doesn't matter whether you're in any aspect of public service, whether you're building highways or you're working in schools or you're running a library. These are standards that have to be met, and how do you provide that service, which is a standard? So I support this kind of thinking across the board whenever changes are made.
Thank you. Seeing no additional conversation, we do have a motion on the floor relating to the financial aspect. All those in favor? And opposed? And that is carried. Thank you. Would you like to introduce the rest of your motion?
Oh, let's do that. So then the second motion would be, now therefore be it resolved that the town of Silver Lake expresses concern regarding the public library provisions of Bill 28 and their potential impact on local governance, library operations, patron privacy, and the quality of library services in the town of Sylvan Lake. 2, affirms its confidence in the town of Sylvan Lake Public Library Board and its professional staff to manage library collections and services in accordance with existing legislation, board policies, and community standards. 3, calls on the Government of Alberta to engage in direct structured consultation with the Coalition of Alberta Public Libraries, Municipalities, and Library Boards before finalizing any regulations or guidelines under Bill 28. And then a repeat of 5, direct administration to send a copy of this resolution to the Minister of Municipal Affairs, Premier, local MLA, Alberta municipalities, and the rural municipalities of Alberta.
And if you'd like to speak anything additional, you have the floor.
Yeah, may as well. So setting aside because there's the moral concern that people have, you know, and there's not really, you can't really argue morals because everyone has a different perspective on it and no one's going to convince each other otherwise. There's still a lot of operational problems that I have with Bill 28. And the principal one is that the provincial government time and time again demonizes the federal government and says, stay in your lane, this is a provincial matter, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And then they do the same thing with municipalities. Libraries have been governed and managed by municipalities and their local boards for decades. And this is taking away our ability to govern our own municipality and our own library board. And I don't know why. I have a difficult time wrapping my head around conceptually why the Minister of Municipal Affairs has a greater say in how our library is managed than we do around this horseshoe. And that being said, we're not changing Bill 28. It's passed. It is what it is. The implementation of it is what we still have a bit of say in for advocacy. And I would like a seat at the table. I would like to put a voice forward that says we should be consulted on how these regulations are formed, what they're about, what they say, what the contents are, because it impacts us. It impacts our ability to govern the municipality. It impacts the library board's ability to manage things. It impacts the people that we hire who are specialized in doing that work. And I have a hard time with the provincial government not staying in its own lane here, to be blunt. And I don't think it should be, like if you set aside the moral issues, if you just table that in your head for a minute, right? Don't get into the conversation about what books or what. Just look at it from a mechanic standpoint. This is still odd, right? That the provincial government is telling the municipalities what they can and can't do with their own internal governance. And, you know, it just doesn't sit well with me, and I think that it's a valid point to try and say, talk to us about it then.
Additional comments? Councillor Stindy, and then Councillor Johannesson.
Number one, the one that concerns me the most is patron privacy. It's no provincial government's business to know what book I take out. And in number two, which speaks to governance from number one as well, is just, it's a library board given authority to it by the provincial government, as noted, has been running for decades, is a group of citizens from our community, and I think it should be honored as it has been. And maybe using the words of, you know, we each need to stay in our lanes and work in the lanes that have been driving really well up to this point in time. The third one is, well, it is, as said, it's already been passed, but it came about with essentially no consultation. It appeared on our doorsteps, and it is critical that the regulations at least be consulted with public and other interested parties as listed here. So I speak in favor of supporting this resolution for those reasons.
Councillor Johannesson.
Yeah, so to address some of the concerns that Councillor Iwanicki and Councillor Cindy just said, I actually said to Daniel Smith at the fall Alberta Munis that I said the same thing, that you're complaining about being handcuffed by the federal government, but you handcuff municipal government. So on that point, I agree. However, I don't think they're doing that here. The MLA has concerns because we have not done our job properly. The province was forced to step in to protect children. When we veer off the lane, they have to step in. So it's not actually moving out of our lane, it's us allowing inappropriate material in the libraries and them having to take a stand on that. So I believe they're completely right. I have a cousin who works for the library who's one of the few librarians who actually doesn't agree with Bill 28.
Sorry.
That was only 30 seconds.
That was Joe's time limit still.
Okay, I get to start again. So I have a cousin that works for the library, so I have a little bit of inside information. She agrees with Bill 28. I believe it's important to recognize that much of the wording and rationale behind this motion appears to have been copied nearly verbatim from advocacy material circulated by the Coalition of Alberta Public Libraries. As a result, the motion actually does not read as an independently developed position reflecting the unique views and priorities of Sylvan Lake residents and taxpayers. Instead, it appears to mirror the position of an organized advocacy group with a direct institutional interest in opposing Bill 28. And I know that for a fact. I've seen the copy. She sent me a copy. So this is actually from the Coalition of Alberta Public Libraries, which is basically a union. The councillor bringing this motion forward currently serves on the library board, and I believe also served on the board prior to being elected. That raises legitimate concerns about whether this motion is being advanced primarily in the interest of taxpayers and residents or in the interest of the library system itself. Council members are elected to represent the broader public, not to act as spokespeople for boards, associations, or advocacy organizations. I'm a member of the Sylvan Lake Innisfil UCP board, and it would be completely inappropriate for me to bring to council and ask council to support legislation from the UCP board. I think that's a conflict of interest. I also do disagree with the premise of the motion itself. Bill 28 is intended to strengthen protections for children and ensure that age inappropriate and sexually explicit materials are not easily accessible to minors in publicly funded libraries. Many residents in Sylvan Lake support reasonable safeguards for children, and I believe those voices deserve recognition as well. While the resolution asks council to affirm confidence in the library governance and collection management, I personally do not believe council should simply dismiss public concerns on the issue. In fact, the strong opposition from some within the library system toward even basic provincial oversight demonstrates exactly why many Albertans feel greater accountability is necessary. I also do not believe it is the role of municipal council to interfere in provincial legislative matters. This resolution asks the town of Sylvan Lake to take on a political stance on a provincial social policy rather than focusing on core municipal responsibilities such as infrastructure, public safety, taxation, etc. For those reasons, I cannot support this. There is a ton of misinformation online from libraries and activists who are making this bill into something it's not. I don't think it's appropriate for anyone who has not read the entirety of this bill, which I have, to even vote on this matter, but in no way can you vote yes. I think there's a lot of misinformation out there that's being twisted about the bill. Obviously, passing this resolution will actually do nothing. The bill is in place and we have to accept that. And I believe that as a council, this is out of our lane. I believe the only emails we've gotten on this subject are actually in favor of Bill 28. It protects children. You're asking me to, and the town of Sylvan Lake, to support and put trust in the library board. But the library board, in my opinion, has failed to earn that trust by opposing this bill, which simply takes sexually explicit materials and puts them behind a shelf. It doesn't remove them from the library. So I cannot support this. I know it's going to pass. I get that. I think that it's a shame, and I will definitely separate myself from this, but from the council's decision if it does pass. But at this time, I actually fully support Bill 28, and I think we're a bit out of our lane here.
When it comes to advocacy, though, Tej, we're always out of our lane. That's the reality of it. When it comes to advocacy, that's why we advocate. It's because there are things that we need to see changed. Now, with that being said, I agree with a lot of what's in Bill 28. I agree that there should be restrictions on what some children can take out. I have no issue with that. I do have issue with a part of Bill 28 telling us how we can use our libraries, how the library can be used as a space. I think there's overreach, as there is in every piece of legislation that's ever made. There's overreach in the legislation. I think that the piece here that I support is the call on government to engage in direct conversation, because that's not something that's happened. You know, it's been imposed, and one of the things that I dislike tremendously, and I disliked it with the NDP government as well, when the NDP were in place, there's a lot of, we're gonna tell you to do this now, and not a lot of, you know, and exactly the same thing that people were arguing about earlier tonight. You know, you didn't ask us before you imposed on us what these rules are. And that's what a lot of Bill 28 is. And it's not just in this case, in the housing situations as well. It's across Bill 28. There are pieces where it's being imposed and the conversation's not being had. Now, at the end of the day, we're gonna end up in exactly the same space. The government is going to impose a series of policies and a series of procedures. And I understand that. I just want to have the conversation. And I think the people involved on the ground level need to be allowed to have the conversation. And if in the end they say, hey, this is what you need to do. You know, I've always been somebody who will respect the rule of law at the end. But I don't think it's wrong of us to challenge that rule of law in the process of where we can. And a lot of that is conversation. A lot of that is sitting down and saying, hey, tell us why you're doing this. You know, and you know, some of the questions, some of the answers are easy. We're protecting children. Yes, in that piece you're protecting children. But why are you doing this? Why are you telling us how we can use our library? Why are you telling us how we can use our space? You know, so there's pieces of this that I agree with. Pieces of Bill 28 I have no issue with. And pieces that I really just think there needs to be a conversation. And it's not just Bill 28, it's across the board with this provincial government. And it was with the last provincial government, just having things imposed on us. And as somebody who's been in municipal governance now for more than a decade, I keep seeing the downloading, the forcing of, hey, you need to do this now, without having the conversation. And like we saw earlier tonight, people don't like being told this is how it's going to be without being a part of the conversation. Just ask them to come to the table. That's what I see this this motion as, is just us supporting, hey, talk to us about this. Don't just tell us do this. Get us to the table and explain to us. It's about education.
Any additional thoughts, council? No, you had a minute to spare there. We've got a motion on the floor by Councillor Iwanicki. With that on the floor, all those in favor? And opposed? And that is carried. Thank you. Council will move into the closed portion of our meeting. Would someone like to make that motion? Councillor Burns.
I make a motion that the council move to a closed meeting to discuss advice from officials, and this item shall remain confidential pursuant to Section 29(1) of the Access to Information Act, SA 2024, CA-1.4, and Section 197(2) of the Municipal Government Act, RSA 2000, M-26.
Excellent. All those in favor? And opposed? And that is carried. Council will head straight back. Johannesson.
I move that council that the closed session concludes and council reverts back to the regular meeting of council.
Excellent. All those in favor and opposed? That is carried. Would someone like to put forward some motions for us? Councilor Mearns.
I make a motion that council approve a budget adjustment to increase the budget for looping Pogettle Park to Broadway Rise Water Main CP 2415 by $1.2 million to $3.5 million as presented in AR 1398, and that council directs administration toward the construction contract CP 2415 Pogettle Park to Broadway Rise Water Main CP 2413 Sanitary Trunk Main to service South Annex lands, and CP 2601 Pogettle Park temporary paved road to Pitch Ernie's Inc. of Black Falls for $5,098,417, excluding contingency and GST as presented in AIR 1398.
Thank you. Council, do we have any questions, comments? Great. Motion on the floor. All those in favor and opposed? That is carried unanimously. Council, we've reached the end of our agenda. Our meeting is adjourned. Have a good night.